Issei is a lonely gooner who finally bags a smoking hot chick only for her to stab him on the first date. However, he gets reincarnated by a busty demon queen who turns him into her personal weapon, made to clap enemies by day and her thighs by night.
I'm willing to do anything for you as long as it makes you happy.
It all begins with Issei and his friends daydreaming about being crushed by mega milkers just like you. As a group of girls pass by them, Issei complains that he had hoped he would get a hot girlfriend by junior year, but he's still the CEO of Dry DMMs. Suddenly, he catches a glimpse of Riez Gremory, president of the Occult Research Club, and is instantly drawn to her despite knowing a premium baddie like her would never notice someone like him. Later that day, as Issei sulks over not having a girlfriend, a girl walks up to him. She introduces herself as Yuma and shyly reveals that she has a crush on him. However, since he has never seen her before, his mouth opens wider than your mom.
Emotional, damn it!
The next day, Issei proudly introduces Yuma as his girlfriend to Motohama and Matsuda, who call him a traitor for betraying the Brotherhood. After class, Yuma shyly asks Issei out on a date to which he happily agrees to, thinking he would finally get laid. So the next morning he shows up earlier than usual for his date. While waiting for his girlfriend, a mysterious girl hands him a talisman, claiming it will grant his deepest wish. Before Issei can make sense of it, Yuma arrives and the talisman slips from his mind. From there, they go browsing stores and later stop for a quick bite where Issei finds himself thinking that he's really lucky to have a cute girlfriend like Yuma. While walking home, Issei grabs Yuma's hand, who smiles shyly in return. Suddenly, she tells him that she wants him to do something special for her to celebrate their first date. Thinking he is finally going to lose his lit virginity, Issei says he will give her anything she wants, but she suddenly asks him to die. Suddenly, Yuma transfers into a thoughty angel, which fills Issei with more excitement than fear. Summoning a holy weapon, Yuma tells Issei his time is up and stabs him with it. As blood starts to ooze out of him, Yuma casually tells him that he should blame God for planting a sacred gear inside his body. With her job done, Yuma flies away, leaving Issei in the park to die alone. Now alone, Issei looks at his crimson red hand, which reminds him of Riez, making him wish that he could squeeze her jugs before meeting his end. Suddenly, the talisman in his pocket flares up and a glowing pentagram materializes before him. To Issei's shock, Riez steps out and tells him that she is here to save him, but from now on, he will live to serve her and only her. The following morning, Issei wakes up in his room. Confused, he heads to the academy, but when he meets his friends, they don't remember anyone named Yuma. Weirded out by this, Issei decides to relax at Matsuda's Jizz Den. However, he freaks out when his vision becomes extremely sharp and vivid. Issei decides to head home, but on his way, he finds out that he can hear people from miles away. To seek answers, he heads to the park, now sure that whatever happened with Yuma wasn't a mere dream. Suddenly, a man in a trench coat spawns out of thin air, which scares Issei so much that he tries to escape only for him to get stabbed by a magical spear. Falling to his knees, Issei realizes that this pain is worse than getting his nuts busted. Upon touching the spear, Issei further cries in pain, and the man reveals that his weapon is made of light, which is poison for his kind. Just as he is about to throw another spear at Issei, Riez appears from a pentagram. While Issei loses consciousness, the man tries to attack Riez, who receives protection from two of her servants. At that moment, he realizes he is face to face with Riez from House Gremory. He instantly kneels before her, revealing he is a fallen angel named Donasik. Riez politely but firmly tells him that if he lays hands on Issei, he will never see the sunlight again. Donasik acknowledges the strength of Riez, but warns her that she should keep a tight leash on her pets. The next day, Issei wakes up and is startled to find Riez without her plot armor. Just when he thinks this is a wet dream, Riez confirms his encounter with Yuma, and the events that have happened since then are all very real. But most importantly, she is a devil whom now owns his body. Before he can register anything, Issei hears his mother coming up, so he tries to hide Riez. However, when the door opens, misses. Hyudo finds her son with a smoking hot babe. The door shuts off quickly, and Issei hears his mom tell his father how he has a girl with massive calcium tanks in his bed. At that moment, he prays for an asteroid to hit his house so he doesn't have to face humiliation from his parents. Suddenly, his thoughts drift off to a more pressing matter as he wonders if his little Issei got to explore Riez's cave. In the meantime, Riez puts on her peach protectors and tells him that his body is quite strong since he managed to have a speedy recovery despite being fatally wounded. Confused, Issei asks Riez how he even managed to survive such a powerful attack, causing her to reveal that she shared her magical energy with him. a process which can only work if she hugs him completely bare. Just when Issei is about to celebrate this mega win, he remembers how Riez told him she was a devil. He asks if this is some new zodiac sign which makes her laugh. She tells Issei that for now, all he needs to know is that she is her master. At the academy, everyone looks at Issei with jealousy as he walks with Riez and her jugs. Once she heads to her class, Issei receives a punch from Matsuda, who asks him which god he prayed to that helped him breathe the same air as Riez freaking Gremory. Despite getting punched, Issei proudly tells his friends he got more action with Riez in a night than Eren got during the rumbling. Meanwhile, a girl called Sona tells Riez that she never imagined someone like her would include someone as pathetic as Issei in her household. Riez herself doesn't know why she took in Issei, so she replies to Sona that it feels like she now has a younger brother. Sona wonders what in the Alabama is going on here but decides to keep quiet. After classes, Issei impatiently waits for Riez to summon him when he is greeted by Mr. Golden Nuts. Kiba approaches him and states Riez wants to speak to him. Meanwhile, Kiba's fangirls are disgusted upon seeing someone as handsome as him speaking to a lowlife like Issei, which of course ticks off Issei. Seconds later, they arrive at the Occult Research Club where Issei finds Kaneko. Seeing her up close, he begins daydreaming about her milkers that bring out all the lolicons out when he is greeted by the greatest pair of double Ds. The girl introduces herself as Akino, the vice president of the club, and Issei shyly assures him that he's usually a lot less awkward. In truth, his brain makes up fantasies featuring Akino and Riez having pillow fights wearing absolutely nothing but their skin. Once Riez arrives, they all sit down for a serious chat. She welcomes Issei as the newest member of the Occult Research Club. However, she quickly adds that the club is only exclusive to the devils belonging to her. Surprise, Issei asks if everyone in this room is a devil, and Riez affirms, stating that the man he encountered was a fallen angel who got kicked out of heaven for being naughty. Since then, the fallen angels have continued targeting both humans and devils. However, the devils have it the worst, since they're also targeted by the angels. After receiving so much information at once, Issei's brain practically shuts down to help him process it all. Riez shows him a photo of Yuma and calmly confirms that his little girlfriend was real. When Issei asks what she knows about Yuma, Riez explains that she is a fallen angel from the same group as Dona Seek. Still confused, Issei mentions that his friends don't remember her at all. In response, Riez reveals that Yuma used her powers to erase Matsuda and Motohama's memories, just as she did earlier that morning with his parents. Riez then tells Issei that Yuma's mission was to eliminate him because they suspected he had a dangerous item hidden within him. At that moment, Issei remembers being stabbed by Yuma's light spear as she believed he possessed a sacred gear. Akino joins in, explaining that throughout history, sacred gears have been passed down to powerful humans. These weapons are so strong that they pose a threat to both devils and fallen angels. To test him, Riez instructs Issei to raise his hand and imagine the strongest being he can. Unfortunately, his mind wanders off again, and he ends up failing the test. When he gives up, Riez reassures him that there's no need to rush. Still feeling useless, Issei insists there must be a mistake. In his mind, someone like him, who spends most of his time watching Annie and Deer recaps, couldn't possibly be important. But Riez tells him there's no mistake, pointing out that the fallen angels clearly saw him as enough of a threat to try and eliminate him, not once but twice. Issei then asks how he's still alive if they actually succeeded. Riez holds up the strange talisman he had received earlier on his date with Yuma, and reveals that in his final moments, he unknowingly called out to her and she responded by reincarnating him into the Gremory household. When his wings emerge, Issei finally accepts the truth that he is now a devil. Riez goes on to explain that devils gain power by forming contracts with humans. However, in the modern age, people are no longer performing summoning rituals with blood sacrifices. To keep up with the times, devils now use magic circles to connect with humans who are desperate enough to ask for their help. She gives Issei a stack of these magic circles and sends him out to deliver them, mainly to people who seem emotionally drained and hopeless. After being briefed on everything, Issei is sent to handle a client originally assigned to Kaneko. When he arrives at the client's house, the man opens the door, takes one look at Issei, and immediately looks disappointed. Even though the guy is rude and looks like he hasn't showered in weeks, Issei stays polite and asks if he needs help. The man replies that he was expecting someone attractive and claims Issei is not even the A of attractive. As the night goes on, Issei ends up bonding with the miserable client since both of them are painfully ugly, and neither has ever been near a girl without being ignored or laughed at. After the unsuccessful job, Issei heads home, but along the way, he senses something strange. He He turns around and sees another fallen angel. She introduces herself as Kalawana and immediately starts throwing light spears at him. Refusing to be rescued by anyone again, Issei shuts his eyes, focuses, and manages to activate his sacred gear. The moment it appears, Kalawana panics and disappears without a fight. Issei then reports the incident to Riez. However, instead of praising him, she scolds him for being reckless and acting alone. Issei quietly accepts the criticism and returns home. The next day, while still thinking about everything Riez said, Issei walks through town in a daze. Suddenly, he bumps into a girl, and before he can say anything, he accidentally catches a glimpse of her chest, which is enough to knock him out. After memorizing every curve of Asia's figure, Issei finally snaps out of his daydream and decides to actually help her. The moment their eyes meet, it becomes crystal clear to both his brain and body that she's exactly his type. Asia turns out to be a bit naive and asks him for directions, explaining she is lost. As they walk together, she casually shares that she was recently assigned to the local church and is happy to meet a kind young man. During their conversation, she spots an injured boy on the side of the road and rushes over to help him. Issei watches in disbelief as she uses healing magic to treat the child, but then, without warning, he feels a sharp pain shoot through his hand. Asia immediately apologizes, explaining that she was blessed by God and sometimes her healing power affects others around her. A few minutes later, when they reach the church, she invites Issei to come in so she can thank him properly. But the moment he looks at the building, his entire body reacts, shaking with pain from head to toe. Panicking, he politely excuses himself, promising he'll try to visit sometime. Asia looks a little disappointed but still smiles and tells him to stop by whenever he can. As they part ways, Issei can't help but think Asia is way too sweet for her own good. But when he later meets up with Riez, she warns him not to go near churches again because for devils, such places are off limits. To make her point even clearer, Riez explains that if he keeps hanging around church folk, he'll be exorcised, and exorcism for a devil means total erasure. Terrified, Issei immediately promises to stay far away from any building with a cross on it, which is easy for a lowlife like him. Later that evening, Issei sulks in the clubroom until Akino arrives, and in her usual teasing tone, offers a foot job. Just as things start to get weird, Riez walks in, and Akino quickly changes the topic. Instead, she informs Riez that the Archduke has requested they handle a stray devil. On the way to the mission, the group takes the time to explain what a stray devil actually is to Issei. They reveal that sometimes a devil betrays or murders their masters so they can live as they please. Akino goes on to say that the one they're about to face is known to lure people into an abandoned building before devouring them. Riez tells Issei to observe closely to learn how experienced devils handle battle. The mission takes a strange turn when a pair of massive hooters suddenly appear from the shadows, leaving Issei too distracted to think straight. Riez identifies the enemy as a visor type of devil that escaped their master and became corrupted by their own desires. The situation escalates fast when the rogue devil activates actual booby traps. Issei, stunned by the weaponized chest, can't help but think such a body was completely wasted on the wrong person. Kiba moves first, slicing off the devil's arm in an instant. Riez explains that Kiba is her knight and specializes in speed. Not long after, Kaneko steps in and displays her insane strength, prompting Riez to state that Kaneko holds the role of Rook, known for power and defense. When the stray devil attempts to strike Riez, Issei instinctively jumps in and shields her without thinking. Akino then finishes off the opponent using her lightning powers, showing off her role as the queen. Finally, Riez, acting as the king, obliterates the stray devil entirely and ends the battle. After everything settles, Issei asks what his own role is. He's quickly informed that he's a pawn, the lowest ranking piece in the team. The title alone brings his mood crashing down, and he spends the next day sulking like a rejected loser. Eventually, he's assigned a solo job. Upon reaching the client's house, he feels an overwhelming sense of dread, but he remembers that Riez warned him that if he doesn't complete the contract, she'll be disappointed. Not wanting to let her down, he forces himself inside, only to find the floor smeared with blood. Suddenly, he's confronted by a man named Fried Zelzen, a rogue priest and a member of an exorcist organization. The moment he sees Issei, Fried snaps and begins ranting about how much he despises devils. Out of nowhere, Asia appears from a nearby room and is shocked to see Issei. Frozen with shame, Issei reveals that he's a devil, though lying to her was never his intention. Asia tears up, and before he can react, Fried mocks her for thinking Issei is a good person because to him, the idea of a good devil is non-existent. Asia ignores him and stands firmly in front of Issei, insisting that he means no harm. Her words, however, only fuel Fried's irritation, and in a burst of fury, he prepares to strike her. Issei, unable to watch her suffer, calls upon his sacred gear and tries to fight. But it's no use as he's completely outmatched. Fried easily blocks and counters everything Issei throws at him. Just when the situation reaches its breaking point, a glowing magic circle appears. Riez and her team step through, arriving just in time. Before any further combat can take place, Akino calmly states that this isn't the right moment to fight since the risk is too high, and engaging Fried now would be reckless. Riez agrees and orders the team to retreat. As they prepare to leave, Issei begs her to bring Asia with them, not wanting to leave her behind. But Riez refuses as only members of her household can travel through her circle, and Asia isn't one of them. With no other option, Issei is forced to leave. As the circle closes and they return home, he silently weeps, unsure if he will ever see his friend again. After receiving a tight hug from Riez, Issei finds life is worth living again. Once she is done sharing her magical energy with him, Akino steps in to put bandages on his wounds. Curious, Issei asks the gang since when did the priest stop diddling tiny humans and started hounding random demons, so Kiba explains that Fried is a stray priest, a disgraced member of the church who now works under the fallen angels. This revelation prompts Issei to assume that Asia must also be serving under the same faction. Even though she technically falls under the enemy category, Issei finds himself completely incapable of shaking off his attraction to her. Trying to distract himself, he heads to the park for a workout session, but his attempt at physical activity ends up exposing that his strength is just as pathetic as his stupid hairstyle. While struggling through his exercise routine, he suddenly spots Asia standing nearby. Later, at a restaurant, she explains that she was simply on a break and decided to relax for a while. Seeing her again brightens Issei's mood, and he suggests they spend the day together. Taking his suggestion to heart, the two visit an arcade where Asia unexpectedly shows she is a cool nun. Hoping to make a good impression, Issei wins a toy for her, which brings her visible joy. As she hugs the plushie tightly, she begins to think to herself that this might be the last time she'll ever get to enjoy a moment like this with him. On their way out, Issei winces from a sharp pain in his arm. Without hesitation, Asia uses her magic to heal him once again. However, seeing her on her knees, Issei finds all the blood rush to his wee-wee, so he stands up and starts working out before things get out of control. Once he is all healed up, he praises Asia, which prompts her to open up about her past. She reveals that her parents abandoned her shortly after birth, and she was taken in by a European church. During her childhood, she once saw a wounded dog and prayed sincerely for its recovery. Miraculously, her prayer was answered, and the animal was healed. Word of her ability spread, and she was eventually transferred to a bigger church where she was tasked with healing the faithful who came from all over the world. However, her fate took a dark turn the day she used her power to heal a wounded devil. The church immediately cast her out, labeling her a heretic. With nowhere to go, she was taken in by the fallen angels, who offered her a new place to belong. Despite this betrayal, Asia holds no grudge against God. Instead, she tells Issei that since she is a loser without any friends, all she wants is to be included in a group chat. As she shares her story, Issei reassures her that despite their differences, she can count on his friendship. Just then, Yuma appears, interrupting their peace by stating that it's too soon for them to exchange friendship bracelets. Asia stands her ground and tells Yuma she won't return to the church, refusing to take part in actions that harm others. Issei also steps forward and attempts to dismiss Yuma, but she summons her light lance, making her intentions clear. Issei calls forth his sacred gear, prompting Yuma to smirk. She explains that his gear, known as the Dragon Hans, can double his power but only for a short time. She then demands that he hand over Asia, but Issei refuses, claiming he cannot abandon someone he considers a friend. Before he can activate his gear, Yuma launches a light lance that lands directly on his chest, leaving a gaping wound. Asia quickly moves to heal him, and once the magic sets in, Issei realizes he can no longer feel pain. Yuma observes this and once again demands Asia return with her, revealing that Asia possesses a rare sacred gear called Twilight Healing. Unlike Issei's, hers has actual value. Asia, however, sees through her words and accuses Yuma of only caring about her power. Yuma, unbothered, admits that she didn't go through so much trouble for her so they could talk about how cute Prime Justin Bieber was. Seeing how cruel Yuma is, Issei ends up pleading for Asia's safety, but Yuma counters by offering a deal. If Asia comes willingly, he will be spared. To prove she's not bluffing, she hurls another lance, deliberately missing to emphasize her control. Feeling cornered and desperate to protect Issei, Asia agrees to go with Yuma. She is promised that after the upcoming ritual, all her pain will end. Now left alone, Issei curses his own weakness, and when he returns to the clubhouse, he is immediately slapped by Riez, who sternly reminds him that spending time with someone like Asia is dangerous and unacceptable. For the first time, Issei pushes back and tells Riez to remove him from her household, convinced that as a pawn, his absence won't be noticed. Riez, though clearly upset, tells him otherwise. She explains that pawns hold a unique potential. While their starting point may be low, they have the ability to evolve, especially when paired with a sacred gear like his, which grows stronger depending on his willpower. The more determined he is, the more power it can produce. Before she can say more, Akino enters and whispers something in Riez's ear, prompting her to leave immediately. Alone again, Issei replays her words in his mind, realizing that he might be able to earn a promotion if he defeats one of her enemies. With that logic in mind, he decides to confront the fallen angels and rescue Asia. Just as he is about to depart, Keiba and Kaneko arrive, stating that they'll accompany him. Meanwhile, Riez and Akino arrive at the church, where they are met by a fallen angel named Maitelt. Riez wastes no time taunting her, stating that her team has already entered the church without resistance. Maitelt, unfazed, confidently claims that her subordinates won't be so easily defeated. Inside the church, Issei, Keiba, and Kaneko prepare their strategy. Issei thanks them for supporting him, and Keiba, with a small smile, says he's glad to help, especially since he harbors deep hatred for fallen angels. However, since Keiba doesn't have a huge pair of tatas, Issei ignores him and focuses on the mission. Upon entering the church, they are immediately confronted by Fried, who is more than ready to fight. Keiba steps up, revealing his weapon of choice, the Holy Eraser, a blade forged from darkness, capable of consuming light. Outside, Maitelt summons Kalawana and Donasik to join her against Riez and Akino. Inside, Fried is quickly overwhelmed by the combined strength of the devils. Realizing he is outmatched, he chooses to retreat instead of fighting to the death. Issei and the others continue deeper into the building and eventually find Asia's location. But before they can reach her, Yuma appears and announces that they've arrived too late as the ritual is almost complete. Turns out, the fallen angels have no intention of sparing Asia as they plan to extract her sacred gear, despite knowing that doing so will end her life. As Yuma successfully extracts Asia's twilight healing, a wicked grin spreads across her face. With that sacred gear now hers, she considers herself the ultimate fallen angel. Witnessing this, Issei can no longer contain his rage. Fueled by emotion, he leaps into action, determined to chop off Yuma's wings now that she has gone full Maleficent mode. Keiba and Kaneko swiftly clear the path through the chaos, allowing Issei to rush toward the altar. But by the time he reaches Asia, she has already collapsed in his arms. His life starts to fade from her weak body. Yuma casually mocks him, telling him to keep the broken doll if he wants. But Issei, holding back tears, demands that she return Asia's sacred gear. Yuma responds with her usual scorn and reveals that she went behind her superiors' backs to carry out this entire plan, and now that everyone has seen her betrayal, she has no choice but to eliminate them all. Shaken and heartbroken, Issei admits that he truly had feelings for her, only for Yuma to burst into laughter and humiliate him further. She mocks his delusion and tells him she'd never go for someone who looks like expired milk.
Emotional, damn it!
Meanwhile, outside the church, the fallen angels find themselves unable to get past Akino's barrier. With no physical attacks possible, Maitelt resorts to insults, taunting Riez with the claim that Yuma will easily finish Issei off. Riez, however, remains firm in her belief, calmly assuring Maitelt that Issei is her strongest pawn. Back inside, Yuma continues her taunts, until Issei crashes out, which further pushes the thought to become more unhinged. Before she can attack him, Issei scoops up Asia and makes his escape while Keiba and Kaneko stay behind to take on Yuma's minions. Grateful for their help, Issei flees the church with tears in his eyes and carries Asia to a nearby empty chapel. In that quiet place, Issei tells the fragile girl that he'll always protect her. Asia, barely able to speak, shares that the time she spent with him was the happiest she'd ever known. Issei tears up, promising that once she recovers, he'll introduce her to his friends Matsuda and Motohama, though they might try to diddle her. Unfortunately, those plans are cut short as Asia quietly passes away in his arms. Shattered, Issei begins to cry uncontrollably. As he sits in the abandoned church, he turns to prayer, begging God to bring Asia back. He pleads for mercy, believing that someone as gentle and kind as her doesn't deserve this fate. Yet his words vanish into the silence, and he comes to realize that he's too far gone, too corrupted for heaven to hear him. Suddenly, Yuma returns, mocking his desperate prayers. At the same time, Maitelt, Donasik, and Kalawana laugh at Issei's foolishness, ridiculing him for ever believing Yuma's act. Their taunts continue until Riez finally loses patience and unleashes her fury on the fallen trio outside. Back in the church, Yuma reveals a wound on her side given to her by Kaiba. Without hesitation, she uses Asia's twilight healing to mend herself, smugly declaring that she's now invincible. Issei confronts her once more, saying that everything she did was wrong. Yuma counters with cold logic, stating that this was always Asia's fate. In her view, humans who wield sacred gears are feared and rejected, and it's only natural they meet such ends. Unable to accept this, Issei breaks down, but instead of collapsing in despair, he taps into his fury. With his dragon hand glowing, he launches a fierce attack. It doesn't do much at first, but as his emotions surge, he pushes past his limits and finally blasts Yuma across the room. Weakened and on the verge of collapse himself, Issei is caught by Keiba, who offers him support. Soon after, Riez and the others arrive, giving him a moment to breathe. Koneko brings Yuma back into the chapel, where Riez updates Issei, telling him that the 3 fallen angels outside have been taken care of. To crush Yuma's arrogance one last time, Riez reveals to her that Issei's sacred gear, the dragon hand she had mocked, is actually the boosted gear, one of the 13 weapons, powerful enough to rival both God and Satan, depending on the will of its wielder. Realizing the gravity of her situation, Yuma reverts to her innocent disguise, the same sweet girl Issei once went on a date with. But this time, Issei tells her begone thought and leads her fate to Riez, who finishes what he started. With Yuma gone, Riez retrieves the twilight healing and tells Issei that they might be able to return it to its rightful owner. Carefully, Issei places the sacred gear back onto Asia's finger, overwhelmed with guilt that he couldn't protect her when it mattered. Understanding the weight of his grief, Riez presents a bishop piece and explains that Asia, with her healing powers, could become a valuable addition to their household. Without hesitation, she attempts to revive Asia by making her a devil. Miraculously, Asia opens her eyes and Issei pulls her into a hug, unable to stop the tears. Riez watches the moment fondly and gently tells him that Asia's well-being is now his responsibility. The following day, Issei returns to the clubhouse where Riez checks in on his recovery. He assures her that he's fully healed and jokingly says he's ready for any service required. Riez smiles and praises him as her most dependable pawn. Before things get too sentimental, Riez teases Issei, warning him that their new recruit might feel jealous. Right on cue, Asia enters and looks disheartened at the closeness between the two. As she begins to pray out of habit, she suddenly clutches her head in pain. Riez calmly informs her that as a devil, she can no longer pray to God. She then asks if she regrets this transformation, but Asia replies with gratitude, saying she's happy because now she gets to stay by Issei's side. Curious, Issei asks about her plans for education, and Asia reveals that she will now be attending classes with him. Riez explains that with her father's influence on the academy board, she pulled a few strings to make it happen. Soon after, Kiba and Kaneko enter with Akino, who carries a celebratory cake. Together, the Grimmery household welcomes Asia into their family with open arms. The following morning, as Issei steps into the clubhouse, he notices bazooka protectors and instantly gets excited as he starts to imagine Asia. Before his thoughts get any filthier, he attempts to peek into the bathroom where Asia is showering, only to be whacked on the head by Kaneko, who bluntly tells him that he needs to be locked up with Diddy. Moments later, Asia steps out in nothing but a towel, asking him what he's doing with her plot armor. Caught red-handed, Issei quickly diverts the conversation and asks why she's here in the first place. Asia cheerfully replies that Riez allowed her to temporarily live at the clubhouse until they find a suitable place for her to stay. Later that day, Riez pulls Issei aside to let him know he needs to goon less and work out more. She declares that from now on, she'll personally train him for battle. Issei, being Issei, jokes that he's already battling urges every day thanks to her wibble wobbles. With that, he heads out to distribute magic circles for contracts. The next morning, Riez picks Issei up for training. Though he tries to flirt his way out of exercise by suggesting they do cardio on the bed, Riez shuts him down instantly. Eventually, he pushes through the workout with the motivation of becoming the ultimate harem king. Riez uses his back as an IKEA chair, which makes Issei go crazy. Sensing where his mind has wandered, she tells him to focus and quit being disgusting. Just then, Asia appears, prompting Riez to pause the training. She announces that they're heading to Issei's house, confusing him at first, but he soon finds out Riez has arranged for Asia to live with Issei and his family. When Issei's parents greet Asia, they ask why a sweet girl would willingly move in with a boy who wants to fertilize her eggs. Asia politely explains that Issei has been kind to her, which is why she trusts him. Despite their son's reputation, his parents are thrilled to hear that someone actually sees potential in him. Riez adds that Asia plans to become Issei's housewife, which makes his parents emotional, since they believed every woman was smart enough to avoid their loser son. At the academy next day, Asia introduces herself to the class. Matsuda and Motohama, as expected, immediately scan her like they're Taylor Swift. When she mentions she's living with Issei, the boys gang up on him in pure jealousy. While Issei gets verbally roasted, he finds some comfort in watching Asia get along with the girls in class. That is, until he overhears them warning Asia to lock her bedroom door at night or risk waking up to Issei transforming into the uncle who gives you life. Long trauma. After class, Issei rides his bike with Asia seated behind him. For a moment, they behave like they want to make as many babies as Ronaldo made, but the moment fades as they arrive at the clubhouse. When he greets Riez, he notices she's quieter than usual. She then informs Asia that it's time to make her official debut. Issei, concerned, feels it's too soon for Asia to begin forging contracts with strangers. However, Akino arrives and assures him that Asia is already quite powerful since she is ranked just below herself. While everyone applauds Asia's strength, Issei can't help but feel slightly envious of her fast-track progression. Determined to stay close to her, he requests permission to accompany Asia while she gets used to the outside world. But Riez declines and sends him off to fulfill his own client duties. Upon arriving at his destination, Issei is stunned to find a buff man dressed like a nurse waiting for him. Despite wanting to run away, Issei gathers his courage and asks the client what his desire is. The man reveals that he dreams of becoming a magical girl. Issei explains that unless he gets hit by Truck-kun and reincarnates, there's no real way to make that happen. The man accepts the advice, and Issei returns, once again contractless. The following day in gym class, Issei reflects on how Riez had scolded him for failing yet again to forge a contract. Depressed, he heads to the infirmary to take a nap. When he wakes up, he finds Riez sleeping beside him, completely uncovered. With trembling hands, Issei reaches for the 2 reasons men die for, but just when he is close, Riez wakes up. Catching him red-handed, Riez offers a deal. If he wants to touch her, he needs to successfully form a contract first. With renewed determination and Riez woobies as motivation, Issei agrees. That evening in the clubroom, Riez says she'll accompany him. Issei feels like a champion, believing her presence guarantees success. They teleport through the magic circle and find themselves in an apartment full of samurai decor. There, they meet Susan, an exchange student obsessed with Japanese culture. Susan's initial wish is to retrieve her lost university notes. Issei complies, although confused about why he keeps attracting such clients who clearly need to be in the psych ward. Once the job is done, he prepares for his reward, only for Susan to reveal another request. Turns out she's in love with someone but too shy to confess. Knowing she is a weeb, Issei tells her to get a cat and a rose toy instead. Riez scolds him, and he quickly advises Susan to write a love letter. She loves the idea and even delivers it using an arrow. The next day, her love interest, who also looks like he is from 90 Days Fiancé, shows up and accepts Susan's feelings. Watching the 2 lovebirds elope gives Issei hope that maybe he and Gunners of Aniender might finally be able to lose their virginity someday. With his job complete, Issei turns to Riez and demands his promised reward. Riez teases him, saying she'll count to 5 and after that, he can't touch her. Issei starts panicking, unsure which side to grab first. But before he can make a move, Kiba and the others walk in. The moment is ruined as Issei ends up grabbing nothing but air. Noticing his despair, Riez gently hugs him, lifting his spirits and watching them from the side. Akino quietly wonders if Riez is starting to fall for their hopeless servant. As Issei and Asia prepare to head out for their daily grind of distributing magic circles, when Riez announces that this will be the final week, where they will have to do such a lame job. However, before Issei can even start celebrating, Riez adds that they'll first need to find themselves a familiar to handle these errands in the future. To set the example, Riez reveals her own familiar, a bat that can shapeshift into a girl. Upon closer inspection, Issei realizes she is the same girl who had handed him a magic circle during his ill-fated date with Yuma. Next, Akino reveals her familiar. An imp Kaneko follows suit by presenting her feline companion Shiro. Just when Keiba steps forward to show off his own familiar, Issei cuts him off, telling him that he doesn't give a flying crap about him, prompting Riez to explain the importance of familiars. Curious, Asia asks how one obtains a familiar, but before Riez can respond, they're interrupted by Sona, the student council president who is accompanied by her crew. Aquino leans over and whispers to Issei that Sona, like Riez, is a high-ranking devil. Sona then formally introduces her newest servant, Saji, who holds the rank of pawn. In return, Riez proudly announces the addition of Issei and Asia to her family. Hoping to bond over their shared title, Issei approaches Saji, only to be met with disdain as Saji says just being in the same room as Issei has fried his brain cells. Before Issei can give him a wedgie, Sona scolds Saji, causing him to apologize to Issei, but then he shifts his attention to Asia and begins flirting shamelessly. Meanwhile, Sona and Riez discuss how they plan to help their underlings acquire familiars. However, since only one devil house can recruit familiars at a time, they agree to settle the matter with a badminton match. Riez teams up with Aquino, while Sona selects her vice president, Shinra. Soon enough, a crowd of gooners gathers around the court so they can see who has the best jiggle physics of all time. The match ends in a stalemate, forcing the girls to schedule a dodgeball game where both devil houses will participate. That night, Issei hands out handmade headbands to his teammates as a token of gratitude. Moments later, Sona and her squad arrive, and the game begins in full swing. Within seconds, Kaneko is eliminated, and the match's intensity rises, but Issei is more focused on the eye candy than the game. Just as he's about to lose all concentration, Sona throws a ball straight into his blue balls, making them actually blue. Asia rushes to his side, ready to heal him. She gently asks where it hurts, but Issei, red-faced and flustered, tries to escape before she unintentionally gives him a handy. Meanwhile, Riez gathers her team and vows revenge for Issei's cracked nuts. The Gremory household stands on business, as Riez herself secures victory by attacking Saji where the sun doesn't shine. The match ends and Sona accepts defeat with grace but points out that if this had been an official rating game, her side would have taken the win. Riez simply smiles and lets her live in that fantasy. Back at the clubhouse, the team celebrates their win. Once the cheers settle, Riez informs Issei and Asia that the time has come to finally get their familiars. When Kiba questions the urgency, Riez explains that the familiar master only appears under the full moon. After teleporting into a mysterious forest, the group is welcomed by the cornball familiar master, Zatuji. Aquino tells Issei that Zatuji was once a respected Pokemon master, but his license got revoked after he was caught trying to breed with Pikachu. Zatoji leads the group to a nearby lake, suggesting that Issei could bond with a water spirit called Undyne. Issei initially gets excited, hoping to finally bond with something that isn't his right hand, but his hopes and meat pole both get disappointed when Undine emerges, looking like a chick with a plot twist in the pants. Devastated, Issei declines, stating that he would rather drag his wee-wee across broken glass than have testosterone Tina as a familiar. The group moves on and stumbles upon a dragon. Just as Issei prepares to tame it, the sky darkens and slimes begin to fall from above. To everyone's dismay, the slimes strip away the girl's clothing, immediately earning Issei's affection. Declaring them as the best creatures ever, he tries to claim them as his familiars. However, Riez is disgusted and announces they need to be dead. Before Issei can tell them that the slimes could be some idiot who got reincarnated as slimes, the dragon unleashes a lightning attack that burns the slimes to ash. To everyone's shock, the dragon then chooses Asia to be its master. She names him Rasei. Upon returning, Aquino explains that dragons only choose masters with pure hearts, which explains why Rasei instantly electrocutes Issei the moment he tries to get friendly. Humiliated, Issei swears vengeance and vows to one day acquire a familiar so powerful that it'll make Rasei look like a house lizard. The rest of the team just laughs, knowing the only thing Issei has successfully tamed is the cobra in his pants. Issei's day begins with a wild surprise as he finds himself married to Riez. His classmates immediately question how many goats he sacrificed to land a woman like her, while his parents beam with pride, which your parents will never do. Baffled, Issei tries to make sense of how their relationship escalated so quickly. Choosing not to dwell on it, he realizes that all those pineapples he consumed are finally going to pay off when Riez goes down on him. All of a sudden, a sinister voice cuts through the fantasy, claiming to reside inside him. The scene abruptly shifts, and Issei now finds himself standing before a massive red dragon who introduces himself as Issei's eternal partner. Suddenly, Issei jolts awake, screaming in pain, realizing it was all just another chaotic dream. The next morning at school, a groggy Issei is approached by Matsuda and Motohama, who check in after learning he had a rough night. Issei explains his disturbing dream, prompting the boys to reveal they've had some unsettling ones too. Asia soon joins the group, apologizing for waking him earlier. Upon learning that their loser friend gets personal wake-up calls from a baddie with a fatty Matsuda, and Motohama spiral into another fit of rage and jealousy. After a round of coping, they theorize that Issei must be packing 11 inches to have girls constantly throwing themselves at him. In their desperation, they strike a deal. If Issei introduces them to anyone with a pulse, they'll reward him with VIP access to a mind-blowing experience. Issei agrees and soon finds himself crammed inside a locker hidden within the girls' changing room. He happily observes more chesticles than a plastic surgeon in Ula until his luck runs dry and Kaneko catches him red-handed and responds with a knuckle sandwich that turns Issei into a before and after makeup tutorial. Asia rushes to patch up his bruised face, offering to strip for him if that's what he really wants. But Issei nervously declines, stating he prefers his goon material to come without consent. Later, Akino informs Riez that Issei has been receiving nothing but praise from his clients. Although Akino finds this amusing, Riez grows concerned. She fears that if Issei experiences too much success, it may shake his fragile sense of self, which has grown accustomed to failure. Later that day, Issei sulks about how Kaneko must hate him now, hoping a bath will cleanse both body and mind. He heads to the bathroom only to discover Asia already in the tub. Startled, he screams and flees when Asia stops him, impressed by his banana. She hugs him and offers her taco for stuffing, but Issei shyly calls her a naughty girl, only for his mother to walk in before they can further the plot. A little later, Issei attempts to meditate, but his brain is too occupied with thoughts of Asia's melons. Before he can suppress his urges, another magic circle appears, and Riez emerges and asks Issei to breed with her like they are the last people on Earth. As she disrobes, Issei silently panics over whether he clipped his nails. Riez urges him to fill her with his mayo and then climbs on top. Before anything actually happens, another magic circle lights up, and this time, an ugly maid steps in, mocking Riez's taste in men. She warns that Surzex, her older brother, would be ashamed. However, Riez counters that everyone loves medium ugly men like Issei. The maid, Grafia, tosses Riez a shirt and introduces herself as a servant of the Grummery household. Issei, mesmerized by her beauty, gets his cheek pinched by Riez, who apologizes for getting his hopes up before departing with Grafia. The following day, Issei is deep in thought when he's ambushed by Matsuda and Motohama. They are furious after realizing the girls Issei introduced them to were actually traps. Later, he returns to the clubhouse and is met by an ugly devil. Grafia introduces the man as Razor, a high-ranking noble and Riez's fiancé. Seeing Razor place his hands on Riez causes Issei's mood to sour. Thankfully, Riez isn't having it either and tells Razor that she has no intention of marrying a cornball like him. Razor coldly reminds her that due to the lack of pure-blood devils, arranged marriages are necessary, and backing out would tarnish her family's name. Riez remains firm in her refusal, prompting Razor to lose his cool. Just as he attempts to intimidate her, Grafia intervenes, reminding Riez she is under Surzek's orders, and announces that if she refuses the engagement, she must face Razor in a raiding game. Razor accepts immediately, confident in his experience and his cuddle crew. Meanwhile, Issei watches Razor drowning in Kuchi and begins sobbing over his own luck despite being the protagonist. When Razor learns that Issei dreams of having a harem, he further mocks him by fondling one of his girls in front of everyone. Enraged, Issei insults Razor, claiming his ugly face could make onions cry. He then activates his dragon hand, only to be swiftly kicked in the gut by one of Razor's subordinates, sending him crashing to the ground. Seeing this, Riez agrees to the raiding game, determined to teach Razor that even losers can become legends. Razor and his harem of thoughts leave. Asia tends to the wounded pawn while Grafia informs Riez that the raiding game will commence in 10 days. When questioned about why they are given so many days, Grafia bluntly states it's because the Grummery house consists of crybabies and wankers. For the first time, Riez doesn't even bother to deny it. To prepare, the team hikes up a mountain for training. Issei, panting like an exhausted pug, trails behind while Riez silently vows to transform Issei into a decent fighter or else they'll have to steal Naruto's corny flute to emotionally blackmail their enemies. The training begins immediately, which makes Issei rather upset. Later, during a break, Issei asks Kaiba about his hatred for priests and fallen angels. Kiba simply states that Riez saved them all from a dark place, and this is why they need to repay her back by winning the raiding game. The first training session begins with swordplay. Kiba makes quick work of Issei, who can't even parry a breeze. Irritated, Issei claims that the only sword he knows how to wield is the one inside his pants. The next round features Akino teaching magic. Asia picks it up with ease, impressing everyone with her natural affinity. Meanwhile, Issei struggles to conjure even a spark. Ince's thoughts are corrupted by Akino's note bags. Hands-to-hand combat comes next, as Kaneko treats Issei like a 90s wife. Later, Riez assigns Asia and Issei to cook. While Asia boils water with magic, Issei peels potatoes using nothing but his intrusive thoughts. Fueled by cultured fantasies, he ends up with a mountain of peeled spuds. At dinner, Issei regains morale by imagining the girls without their plot armor. Riez asks how training is going, and he admits he was the weakest link. Riez agrees but reminds him of his boosted gear, a weapon capable of turning tides, if used right, and she advises him to not let her down. Meanwhile, the girls enjoy a relaxing dip in the hot springs. While Riez and Aquino flaunt their gravity-defying honkadonkers, Asia sulks about having humble pancakes. Seeing this, Kaneko reminds her that at least she is not the president of the itty-bitty-titty community. Meanwhile, Issei tries his level best to get goon material for his late-night sessions. Kiba warns him to not do anything crazy, but Issei shuts him up, stating this as part of his training. Recalling how Kaneko herself told him how his specialty is to be a creep. That night, Issei creeps up to Asia and asks her for a strange favor. After borrowing her clothes, Issei tries to practice his magic when suddenly Asia comes into his vision and suffers an attack. The following day, Riez rounds her evil pieces and gives in a lesson on history. Centuries ago, a brutal war between devils, angels, and fallen angels wiped out most of the old world. Only 3 noble devil houses survived, and their low birth rates left them clinging to life like an endangered species. Hence, the tradition of reviving humans and training them through raiding games began. After the lecture, Issei apologizes to Asia for the previous night's incident. Asia shrugs it off, reminding him to focus on the mission. The pawn then hints that everything must remain a secret until the ultimate move is ready. Later, Riez asks Asia about exorcists, and the former nun explains that they typically rely on holy water and scripture, both of which cause serious damage to devils. That night, Riez finds Issei wandering alone. Dressed like sin itself, she invites him for a late-night conversation where she admits that Razor is practically immortal, thanks to his regeneration powers. He's also undefeated and part of one of the highest-ranking families in the devil hierarchy. Riez then reveals the bitter truth. Her father staged this whole situation to give her the illusion of free will, only to push her into the marriage anyway. When Issei asks why Razor is off the table, Riez reveals that his face alone can make her as dry as the Sahara Desert. Feeling hopeless, Issei admits he doesn't know how to protect her, so Riez takes him into a hug to lift his mood and wee-wee. The next morning, Riez instructs him to boost his gear 12 times and then unleash an attack on Kaiba. Issei does as told, and the attack levels an entire mountain and leaves Kiba rattled. Upon recovering, Kiba reveals that Issei's attack was as powerful as a high-ranking devil's attack. Hearing that, Riez urges everyone, but especially Issei, to believe in himself. With just an hour left before the raiding game begins, Issei reflects on Riez's earlier speech, where she urged the team not to feel insecure about facing Razor, despite him being an immortal Chad and a seasoned champion of the game. Now in the present, anxiety crawls up Issei's spine as he anticipates a complete backside whooping. His train of thought derails when Asia appears in her old church attire, prompting Issei to ask what she is up to. Without hesitation, Asia takes a seat beside him, admitting she's terrified but believes everything will be fine as long as they stick together. Reinforcing her blind optimism, Issei agrees, claiming that as long as they remain united, they'll definitely be able to beat the Andrew Tate of Devils. Upon gathering at the clubhouse, Riez and her evil pieces are greeted by Sona and her loyal sidekick. Sona informs Riez that she personally volunteered to oversee the game, given it's her first official raiding match. Right on cue, Grafia enters, asking Riez if she's ready to proceed. Upon receiving the confirmation, she informs the group that once they activate the magic circle, they'll be transported to a battlefield created specifically for the match. When Issei questions what this battlefield exactly is, Aquino explains that it's an alternate dimension designed for the purpose of raiding games. Once Sona and her vice president depart, Grafia drops another bomb. Lucifer himself will be spectating the match. Hearing this, Riez's mood sours, realizing her all-seeing brother is going to watch her every move. Meanwhile, Issei tries to process the fact that Riez's brother is none other than Lucifer. Kiba clarifies that Surzex is one of the current 4 Satans, having surpassed the previous Lucifer and earning the title of Lucifer Satan. Asia then concludes that this is why Riez holds the title of Harris to the Grimoire family in place of her brother. With formalities done, Grafia instructs the Grimoire team to step into the circle. Upon doing so, they find themselves in a warped replica of Ku Academy. When Issei peers outside, the twisted sky confirms they're inside an alternate space. Graphia proceeds to announce that the Occult Research Club will serve as Riez's base, while Razor will be stationed in the principal's office. Hearing that, Issei lights up, assuming he'll receive a battlefield promotion if he manages to outwit Razor. Akino chuckles and quickly crushes the dream, stating it won't be that simple. Kiba adds that Razor's pawns also stand a chance to earn a promotion if they infiltrate Riez's base. Just as Issei's shoulders droop in disappointment, Kaneko hands him a communication device. Riez outlines the battle plan, stating everyone will remain in contact throughout the match. At the same time, in the enemy base, Razor tells his own evil pieces to destroy Riez completely so she'll crawl back to him in submission. With the game officially underway, Riez assigns her first orders. Kiba and Kaneko are instructed to lay traps within the forest. Once the duo sets out, Riez tells Akino to manipulate the environment using illusionary magic. After Akino leaves, Issei asks for his assignment. Riez tells Asia to remain with her since she will serve as the recovery unit. As the two sit together, Riez then instructs Issei to rest his head on her thunder thighs. The moment he does, Issei finds peace in a way therapy could never offer. In the meantime, across the room, Asia seethes in jealousy. Riez, sensing the moment is right, informs Issei she will now remove part of the spell restricting his power. As soon as she does, Issei feels a sudden surge of power flowing through him. Riez explains that when she first resurrected him, his human body couldn't contain the energy within the boosted gear. That is why she had sealed most of it using layered spells, and the intense feeling he just experienced is merely a fragment of his true potential. Only then does it dawn on Issei that the entire training camp was organized to help him survive his own strength. Riez then reminds him not to hesitate, even if his opponent turns out to be a Victoria's Secret model with tatas so big it hides her face. Issei assures her that he'll bring victory, regardless of cup size. Soon after, Akino announces that preparations are complete. With that, Issei and Kaneko are dispatched toward the gymnasium. Riez warns them that once they enter, combat will be unavoidable. Asia, ever the devout ex-nun, silently prays for the safety of her teammates despite technically being at war with God. Inside the gymnasium, Issei and Kaneko encounter Mira, Chulin, Il, and Nel. Kaneko, analyzing the threat, states that Chulin is a rook with strength rivaling that of a queen. Despite the odds, Issei reminds Kaneko that they expected nothing less, and this is what they trained for. With resolve, they engage as Kaneko takes on Chulin, leaving Issei to face the remaining trio. Meanwhile, Razor sends 3 of his own pawns, Shlia, Marion, and Bilent, on a mission to infiltrate the clubhouse. Back in the gymnasium, Kaneko dishes out a lesson in pain while Issei finds himself chased by Mira and the twins. Eventually, Issei manages to overwhelm them. For the grand final, he unleashes his trump card, Dress Break. When he uses the move, their clothes disintegrate, and the pawns retreat in humiliation, accusing Issei of being a walking violation. While Issei basks in glory, he mentally thanks Asia, crediting her for helping him refine the forbidden technique as she let him tear her clothes to shreds. Just then, Riez orders both Issei and Asia to vacate their positions. Akino is ready to execute the next phase. Upon exiting, Akino unleashes a devastating magical strike, obliterating the enemy pawns and Chulin in one fell swoop. Elsewhere, deep in the forest, Kiba finds himself surrounded by 3 enemies eager to taste his thick white yogurt. Back near the gymnasium, just as Issei and Kaneko prepare to advance, a sudden magical blast strikes, leaving Kaneko injured, severely wounded. Kaneko weakly apologizes for not being of greater service to Riez. In response, Issei, burning with vengeance, vows to defeat Yubaluna, who is also known as Razor's queen. Though Kaneko disappears from the field, Riez calmly informs Issei that she hasn't died. The players who can no longer fight are automatically teleported out of the raiding game and receive immediate medical care. However, with fury coursing through his veins, Issei attempts to go after Yubaluna himself. Before he can make a move, Akino steps in and tells him to back off, declaring that she'll be the one to handle this busty babe. Accepting her command, Issei retreats as Yubaluna expresses her desire to finally face the infamous Thunder Priestess. Akino, equally excited, welcomes the challenge against the well-known Bomb Queen. Elsewhere, Issei is joined by Kiba, who has successfully eliminated Razor's trio of pawns. With their current standings, Razor is left with 9 evil pieces, while Riez holds on to 5. Upon hearing about Kaneko's retreat, Kiba admits she had been looking forward to the battle, prompting Issei to propose avenging her defeat. Riez suddenly interjects with a new strategy, ordering the boys to create a diversion while she and Asia launch a surprise strike on Razor. This strange idea leaves the boys surprised, though Riez explains that relying solely on Aquino is no longer feasible since she is preoccupied with Yubaluna. When Keba voices concern about the risks, Riez unveils her actual plan. She will not injure Razor physically, but will break him mentally. Trusting Riez's judgment, Keba and Issei set out to fulfill their roles. Almost instantly, they encounter Razor's knight Carlomagne. Keba engages Carlomagne directly while Issei spectates, completely captivated by their swordplay. Before long, Issei finds himself surrounded by Razor's remaining evil pieces, beginning with Isabella the Rook, while Razor's sister, Ravel, observes the scene from afar. In that moment, Issei realizes that Razor must be from Alabama, if he included his own sis in his harem. Meanwhile, Isabella launches a barrage of brutal attacks, forcing Issei to steel himself in defense of Riez's honor. Meanwhile, Riez and Asia infiltrate the principal's office only to be intercepted by Razor, who claims to have anticipated their arrival. Back in the woods, Carlomagne struggles to comprehend the variety of swords in Keba's possession and asks him if he has multiple sacred gears. Keba explains that while he only has one, it grants him the ability to forge numerous magical swords. Simultaneously, Issei manages to activate Dressed Break on Isabella. The moment her armor shatters and her bits are exposed, he captures the memory in his hard disk for his hard dawn. As a result, Isabella is retired from the game, stunning Ravel, who assumed Issei was nothing more than a low-tier loser. Before Issei can mentally high-five himself, Ravel urges him to lock in. Glancing above, Issei spots Riez and Asia locked in confrontation with Razor. Surprised to see Riez making a direct attack, Issei gets told by Ravel that Riez never had a chance of winning against Razor since he's immortal. Following that, Ravel commands a group of furry pawns to attack Issei, with Cirrus joining the fray as well. However, Issei remains unfocused. His attention shifts to Riez's struggle until her voice echoes in his mind, commanding him to rise and fight for her. Taking her words to heart, Issei pleads with the Red Dragon for strength, activating a more menacing version of the boosted gear. Calling out to Keba, Issei requests a combined attack. Responding without hesitation, Keba merges his strength with Issei's. The resulting blast generates a field of magical swords, wiping out all enemy pieces in their path. Their moment of triumph is short-lived, as news breaks that Aquino has fallen at the hands of Yubaluna. Not long after, Keba suffers the same fate. Yubaluna, now standing as the victor, returns to disrupt Riez's momentum. Razor, now visibly confident, mocks Riez for dragging out the inevitable and prolonging Issei's suffering. Meanwhile, Ravel scolds Yubaluna for taking so long. Yubaluna replies, revealing a vial, and tells Ravel that she had to seek additional help in order to defeat Aquino. When Issei asks them what's in the vial, Ravel reveals that it's called Phoenix Tears, a treasure of the Phoenix family, which instantly cures any wound. Issei grits his teeth in anger and rushes inside Razor's base, seeking for the Queen's power. When he receives it, he instantly arrives to help Riez, who is getting backshots by Razor. Meanwhile, Yubaluna moves swiftly and tries to harm Asia when Issei quickly steps in and shields her. However, when Asia faints from the shock, Issei vows to finish Razor off. As he charges at Razor and Yubaluna, Issei ends up falling, spectating the match from another location. Sona states that using too much boosted gear has harmed Issei's body. Yet even then, Issei assures Riez to continue fighting and not submit. Ticked off, Razor personally fights Issei and vows to burn him, causing Riez to resign from the game, all so she can protect Issei. In his state of unconsciousness, Issei hears a voice pushing him to use all his power. He realizes the voice sounds familiar while the being tells him that if he keeps behaving like a sissy, he will never get stronger and be able to defeat the white guy. Confused, Issei asks who this white guy is, but the being tells him he'll know when the time comes. Suddenly, Issei finds himself face to face with Drake, the Emperor Dragon who lives inside his left arm. Waking up with a jolt, Issei begins to panic when Grafia appears in his room. Seeing her, he asks what happened to the game, but most importantly, if Riez is alright. The maid reveals that it was Razor who won the game as Riez admitted defeat. Stunned, Issei states that the Riez he knows would never ever admit defeat. So then, Grafia reveals that she did so because Razor was hellbent on eliminating him. Riez accepted defeat so her ugly manservant can continue to goon to Lolis. In that moment, Issei remembers the moment when Riez was crying and telling him to rest as he did more than he should have. now tearing up himself. Issei blames himself for not being strong enough to protect his master, but what's even worse, he could not even aura farm in front of Riez. Gathering himself, he asks what happened to the rest of the crew, and Graphia informs him that Asia was ordered to nurse him to health while the rest of the gang is in the Devil Realm for Riez's engagement party. Shocked, Issei remembers during a training camp Riez told him that she wanted to marry someone who she at least loves. Recalling all the moments he shared with Riez, Issei begins to ugly cry. He blames himself for being a weak, disgusting loser who couldn't protect Riez, but Graphia assures him that Riez was simply doing what she was meant to do from the start. However, Issei refuses to let Riez get tainted by a scum like Razor. Graphia finds it interesting how Issei is willing to go through such lengths for his master, so she hands him a magic circle which will allow him to teleport to the engagement party. She reveals that it was Surzex who ordered her to give him the magic circle, as he too found her an interesting bloke. Once Graphia departs, Asia enters the room and jumps on Issei's bone. However, instead of jumping on it like a bunny, she starts to cry. Through tears, Asia reveals how he was in a coma for 2 days even when she tried her best to heal him. Issei seeks her forgiveness and then reveals his plan of rescuing Riez. Hearing the absolute determination behind his voice, Asia states she will accompany him as well, but Issei tells her no. Asia refuses to listen and insists that she is strong and can help him fight Razor. However, knowing the stakes, Issei orders her to stay safe. Asia cries, telling him how she is scared that if he keeps fighting, he'll finally lose his ability to get Morning Woods. A smile plays on Issei's lips as he tells Asia to remember how he saved her despite all odds. Now feeling a little confident, Asia tells him that if he is going, he better return with Riez no matter what. With that settled, Issei asks Asia for a favor, which she accepts. As she steps out of the room, Issei calls upon Drake and states that he wants to make a bargain with him. Drake accepts but warns Issei that he can't handle his power for more than 10 seconds, so he must wrap up the fight quickly. Meanwhile, in the Devil Realm, Riez frowns upon seeing her engagement dress. She notes that it looks like a wedding dress when Razor appears and tells her to suck it up, loser. With that, he arrogantly tells Riez that she doesn't need to worry, as her wedding dress will be out of the world since it will show that she is now owned by Razor. Once he leaves, Riez is disgusted by the thought of marrying a sleazeball like him. Her thoughts are filled with Issei, making her realize that she'll have to make herself nut while thinking about Issei instead of her own husband. Meanwhile, at the engagement party, Ravel proudly tells anyone who will listen that her brother got a bride through the rating game. The rest of the gang find Ravel's antics shallow when Sona arrives. She assures them their house did in fact put a good match. Kiba and Aquino thank her for kind words, but counter that it's not over yet. Minutes later, Razor arrives to welcome everyone, revealing that by this engagement party, the Grimory household and Phoenix household will be one. Just as Riez arrives at the scene, Issei bursts through the door and announces to everyone that Riez's V card will only be swapped by him. Enraged, Phoenix orders his guards to seize him, but Kiba and the gang quickly lend a hand to their pawn, allowing Issei to focus on the bigger fish. Razor watches the scene, shocked by the sudden intrusion when Surzex arrives and reveals that he asked Issei to come so they can have a final showdown for his sisters, Kuchi. Slightly annoyed, Razor tells Surzex that he won the rating game fair and square. Surzex agrees but states that if he wants to bust a fat one in Riez, he needs more than just his Dragon Balls. To further explain, he also adds that he wants to see the power of the dragon which Issei possesses. Turning his attention to Issei, Surzex asks what he wants if he manages to win. Without a doubt, Issei claims that he wants Riez, which Surzex acknowledges and accepts. Before the battle between the dragon and the phoenix begins, Issei assures Riez that he will settle this fight faster than it took for your father to make you.
Emotional, damn it!
With that, he runs towards Phoenix, announcing to everyone that he will battle God himself if it means keeping Riez happy. He uses Overboost, transforming his boosted gear into a full-fledged armor. Riez looks at Issei in shock, knowing the move is a forbidden one. The countdown begins, as Issei charges a Razor who in return calls upon the Hellfire possessed by the Phoenix. With only 6 seconds remaining, Issei uses Asia's cross to multiply the damage on Razor. At that moment, his eyes widen in horror as Razor realizes that Issei has given his entire arm to the dragon in exchange for him to use forbidden powers that allow him to wield a cross despite being a devil himself. With only 1 second remaining, Issei charges at Razor again, but midway, his time runs out. Drake communicates with him, revealing to Issei that because his body is weak, he could no longer bear the dragon's power. Even then, Issei prepares himself to sacrifice himself if it means to keep Riez safe. But before he can do so, Razor grabs Issei, ready to end the fight when Issei unveils a bottle of holy water and throws it on Razor's face. As his face starts to melt and he starts to wither in pain, Issei recalls all the training given to him and charges to punch Razor, who begs him to look at the bigger picture. His marriage to Riez will ensure the well-being of the devils, but Issei states that nobody ordered a Yappuccino and Sucker punches Razor. Before he can cause real damage, Ravel arrives in time and shields her brother. Seeing Issei go through so much for Riez, Revel's own kitty starts to beat with desire for him. As the match ends, Riez and Issei soar off on a griffin's back. Mid-flight, Riez grabs Issei by the face, plants a toe-curling, spine-tingling, baby-making kiss on him, causing Issei to vow that next time, he is going to make Riez ride his magic carpet without clothes on. Days after the battle, Issei wakes up to his favorite things in the world, the lovely twins, and Riez hugging him tight. But when he's about to feel them, Riez wakes up and greets him softly, saying that she felt sleepy and used him as a body pillow. Issei warns her that, as a man, he has his limits before his rocket lifts off. But Riez says that she could use some time to bond with him as his master in a more intimate way. But before her creamy domains get expanded by him, Asia is out of his door, telling him to wake up. When she hears Riez inside, she opens the door, sees what's happening, gets jealous of it, and quickly joins them. Later, the three have breakfast with Issei's parents, and the parents praise the girls for helping them cook. Riez then asks them for permission to bring the club to the house, and when Issei asks why, Riez explains that their club room is having its annual cleaning, so they need to have their meeting somewhere. Later, at school, Issei is in his thoughts about how Riez has become kinder after he defeated Razor, and he doesn't mind at all considering the amount of cheeks he's seen now. Suddenly, the two gooning simps, Matsuda and Motohama, confront him about the rumors around him that say that he's been clapping baddies like Riez and Aquino, and even has a taste of dudes like Keiba. Just then, Asia and a classmate, Aika, confront them, and Aika warns Asia to stay away from Issei for being a total freak. But suddenly, he feels his hand twitch and quickly tells Asia about it and heads out to get Aquino's help. He finds himself in the club room, and Aquino walks in, looking finer than your hot mother, and wastes no time starting the procedure of draining his overwhelming dragon power. She sucks out the overwhelming dragon power out of Issei's finger till the last drop, while Issei also drains himself to his last drop. Just then, she whispers into his ear, her body pressing close, and she admits that after seeing him so bravely go against Raisin, and even crashing Riez's wedding to save her, she feels attracted to his manliness, and she wants his offspring. She teases him, saying that she might be in love with him, and suggests that they do this more often, which no man in existence would ever refuse. Later, the occult club has its meeting in Issei's room, and Riez starts the meeting by briefing each member on their performance in bringing more contracts, and Issei is at the bottom with 0, but he assures her that he'll pump up those numbers and achieve his goal to become a high-class devil. Just then, Issei's mom pops in with snacks and shows him embarrassing pictures of Issei from years ago, while Riez and Asia are excited to see it. As it gives them an idea of what their male offspring might look like, Kiba notices something else. Among the pictures, Issei is taken with a friend, and Issei tells Kiba it's an old homie he has, but Kiba notices the sword in the background, and realizes that he knows this person. He points out that the sword is a holy sword, but quickly brushes it off and thanks Issei for the pictures. Later, Issei heads out to fulfill a contract, determined to get his numbers up, and he is greeted at the door by some Chad who oozes out Big Daddy energy. He invites Issei in and simply asks him to accompany him while he drinks. And while the guy is obnoxious while drunk, Issei sucks it up and accompanies him, all to get himself a contract done. When it's done, the guy offers Issei his compensation, and while the dude suspects Issei wants his soul, Issei generously asks for something less daunting, saying that his master, Riez, prefers to keep her customers happy. So the guy gives Issei his painting, and it forces Issei to go home with the painting on his back. But on his way back, Riez summons him to an abandoned building, and there, Riez and the others brief him on a Rouge Devil inside. Riez orders Issei, Kaneko, and Kiba to head inside, but Kiba keeps zoning out until he's ordered twice. Then, the trio goes inside, confronts the monster, and fights it. But in the battle, Kiba keeps zoning out, causing Kaneko to get shot by acid. Issei fights it and tells Kiba to lock in, which pushes him to Atake the Rouge Devil. It manages to pin Kiba down, but Kaneko manages to hold it and yeet it up into the sky, leaving it for Aquino to neutralize it. As a finishing touch, Riez approaches it and punishes it with her magic. Then, after the coast is clear, Riez slaps Kiba, scolding him for almost getting Kaneko in danger. Kiba apologizes for his misstep, says he's having an off day, and excuses himself to go home. Issei tries to cheer him up, saying that as friends, he can always tell him anything that's bothering him. But Kiba scoffs at his statement and says that he remembered his reason to live, which is vengeance against the holy sword Excalibur. Later, Riez explains that a holy sword is the most dangerous thing a demon can face, and one slash of it is a guaranteed death for them. But she reveals that only a few people can use them, and years ago, the church experimented with using artificial beings to be able to wield them. But that experiment failed a long time ago. But despite the failure, Riez reveals that Kiba is a victim of that experiment, and hearing that, Issei quickly shows them the picture Kiba saw, and Riez confirms that it is indeed a holy sword, even though it's not Excalibur. Issei says that he used to go to church with the boy in the picture, and while Riez thinks hard, she quickly dismisses it and takes off her plot armor, saying it's time to go to bed. Asia refuses to let that happen and declares that it's her turn to snuggle with Issei to sleep. But Riez refuses to let Issei go. It turns into an argument between the bigger the better against medium is premium, and the girls tell Issei to decide which girl he prefers to cuddle with to sleep, but the argument causes a ruckus, and Issei gets knocked out. Meanwhile, the dude in Izzy's picture, who turns out to be a girl named Irina, is alongside her partner, Zenobia, who are both on a mission to find something in a church, and Irina remembers the city from her old picture. Elsewhere, Kiba is all alone, hunting down Excalibur, when suddenly, a crazy priest pops up in front of him. But behind him is their old enemy, Freed, who is ready to fight again. But to Kiba's surprise, Freed has Excalibur. The two clash blades, going back and forth, and Kiba manages to prove that what Freed carries is Excalibur. But before he gets to send him to his death, Freed gets a call and runs away. Meanwhile, Issei wakes up with both Riez and Asia next to him, using his arm as their pillows. They explained that after he collapsed the night before, they decided to share him. Then both girls leave looking like snacks to make breakfast, thanks him for the good sleep, all the while Issei is conflicted over which baddie he should choose between them. He knows that if he were to expand Riez's creamy domains, Asia would be pissed, so he starts daydreaming a scenario where both girls are begging him to give them that almighty golden pickle of his, and he gets to be a king who gets a different pair of cheeks every time he wants. But he realizes that it's only a pipe dream, and that bumping bellies with Riez is almost impossible. Just then, the red dragon, Drake, speaks to him, which surprises Issei, and he warns Issei that he feels a powerful presence near him, an evil one, and that he should be careful. Drake suspects that it could be the White Dragon, his arch-rival, and that Issei is destined to one day fight the host of the White Vanishing Dragon, as they are both wielders of sacred gears of the two heavenly dragons. Hearing that scares Issei a little, but he tells Drake of his own goal, declaring that with him as his master, he will become a high-level dragon and a harem king with his own roster of hot baddies to clap. While that amuses Drake, he shows support for Issei's goal, promising to lend him his strength, and even saying that hot babes dig dudes with dragon powers, as they symbolize dudes packing dragons underneath. Meanwhile, the student council, Shinra and Sona, are heading to school when they clock two girls with the holy sword. Later, after cleaning the club room, Riez and her crew are discussing Kiba and how he's obsessed with the sacred sword, Excalibur. Riez then reveals that the true Excalibur has been destroyed into 7 pieces. Each piece has been crafted into their own Excalibur, and Kiba was part of the experiment of turning him into a specimen capable of wielding one of the swords. But when the experiment fails, Kiba was yeeted away like trash, freezing in the snow, and that was when Riez found him. Just then, Akino comes in alongside Shinra and Sona, who tell Riez that they need to talk in private immediately, as something urgent has popped up. Later, Riez, Akino, and the 2 council members got into their bathing suits and gathered in Sona's secret dimension bathhouse to discuss the issue the council had found. Sona informs Riez that she has spotted 2 church representatives, both carrying sacred swords, and both have told her that they need to speak to Riez, and they have declared that they will show up at the club room tomorrow. Hearing that, Riez immediately panics, realizing where they are. Elsewhere, Issei and Asia feel a powerful presence at the house, the same presence they felt when facing Freed. But when they step inside, they are greeted by Issei's mother and the 2 church representatives, who are big chilling. The blonde one, Irina, happily tells Issei that it is their reunion, and it shocks Issei to know that his childhood homie is actually a chick, while the blue-haired one, Zenobia, coldly listens in on their whole conversation. Moments later, Riez pops up and embraces both Issei and Asia, relieved to see them both safe, apologizing for not realizing where the two church girls would show up first. Issei then explains that the two came in peace, but they already knew that he was a devil after their brief interaction. The next day, Zenobia and Irina visit the Devil's Club room to face Riez and her crew. They are here to inform the devils that 3 out of the 7 Excaliburs have been stolen by the fallen Angels, their common enemy. They want Riez and her demonic clown show not to interfere while the church is on their mission to retrieve them back in their city. Riez feels insulted by Xenovia's words that accuse her of taking sides with the fallen Angels, and assures these church scums that in the name of the Grimoire family, she will never in her life side with the fallen Angels. The two feel pleased by her answer and head for the door, but before leaving they notice Asia, the former nun, among them. Zenobia coldly calls her a witch, one who turned her ways from God, and they asked her if she feels any affinity to the church despite being reborn as a devil. In tears, Asia says that she does, as she believed in God for all her life, and hearing that, Zenobia demands to have her head, saying that it's better to die as a woman of God than a slave to the devil. Riez tries to intervene as Zenobia keeps talking trash, calling Asia a hoe who bends over to the dark side, but Issei has had enough and faces her, telling her to shut her filthy mouth. He calls out the church for not being there for Asia, leaving her all alone, and Zenobia asks Issei who he is to Asia. He boldly declares that he is her family and his future baby daddy, who will destroy anyone and anything that tries to hurt Asia. Zenobia, hearing that, takes it as a challenge against the church. Suddenly, Kiba pops up and joins in the smoke, taking that challenge and turning it into a 2-on-2 fight. But while the others panic, Riez sees it as an exhibition. The two girls reveal their Excaliburs, and while Kiba is aching at the idea of defeating an Excalibur wielder in Zenobia, Irina is tweaking, saying how she feels both freaky and guilty for having to face her beloved childhood friend in Issei, who is now a devil. Kiba goes on the offensive, using multiple combinations of his collection of blades against Zenobia, wanting to have his revenge and destroy all 7 Excaliburs. But Zenobia shakes the whole ground with her Excalibur of Destruction, showcasing her dominance, and defeats Kiba, saying that he's too rash for thinking he can go against her with a giant sword. Meanwhile, Issei summons his dragon arm, and to everyone's surprise, because his arm belongs to a dragon, the holy sword has no effect on him. So Riez orders him to avoid taking hits to the body, as it can be fatal. Issei tries attacking Irina with his Clothes Exploder special, but he misses and gets Asia and Kaneko instead, earning himself a punch to the face. Irina tries to nicely scold him, telling him to stop being a degenerate, but Issei refuses, saying that to be a melon-loving degenerate is to be a real man. So he refuses to stop using that ability, which disgusts Irina. But when Issei goes for another attack, he gets countered by Irina, and despite his best attempt to keep going, his whole body shuts down from the wound of the holy sword. Seeing this, Riez declares and acknowledges Zenobia and Irina's victory, and thanks them for not finishing off her members. But before the duel leaves, Riez asks them if they know who stole the Excaliburs, and Zenobia reveals that the only lead they have is Kokobile, the leader of Grigori. Riez calls them insane for going against Kokobile straight on, but Zenobia assures her that they are ready to die, and that even one of their members has already died for their cause. Hearing that, Kiba reveals that he saw their friend who died, and that he died fighting Freed. Everyone is in shock to hear that Freed is involved and that he's carrying one Excalibur, but Zenobia simply thanks Kiba for feeding them information and tells him not to get involved in their hunt. However, later, Kiba tells Riez and everyone that he will go after the fallen Angels, and apologizes to Riez for going against her order before leaving the club room. Elsewhere, in an abandoned church, Irina and Zenobia are bathing in musty waters, regretting their lives for being poor. But Zenobia reminds Irina that it was her fault for buying a chopped painting of a saint and spending all their budget, forcing them to stay in a ruined building instead of the Ritz. Their stomachs start grumbling, and they decide that before they even hunt down the fallen Angels who stole the Excaliburs, they need to find something to eat. The next day, at school, while Asia and the others are talking about going to a karaoke, Saji pops up, and upon seeing him, Issei gets an idea. They meet up after school, and Issei begs him to lend him his strength to help Zenobia and Irina in hunting down the fallen Angels. But Saji believes it's a bad idea, knowing that Sona will cut off his willy if he does something so stupid, so he walks away. But suddenly, Kaneko pops up, revealing that she has been listening to Issei's idea, and wants to hear the full version. Issei reasons that since the church prefers that the holy swords be destroyed rather than fall into the fallen angels' hands, that would mean that the church has the same end goal as Keiba and the devils, so they should all work together. While Kaneko hates going behind Rie's back, she decides to follow Issei's plan, and they should start by tracking down Sinovia and Irina. The trio goes to find the two, and not their surprise, they're in the middle of begging for money for them to eat, so they treat the two to food, which they accept gracefully and eat like gluttonous pigs. Then, instead of thanking the devils, they ask God to bless them, which hurts their existence. After the meal, they talk a business, and Issei explains to them about their plan to help them destroy the Excaliburs. While Zenobia accepts the devil's offer, Irina thinks that they shouldn't, as it is their job to finish, even if it means they die on the job. However, Zenobia believes that against Kokobile, it's best if they have more help. Then, they take the idea to Keiba, who is hesitant about working together with these church apes. Zenobia is offended by his words and pulls out her weapon, which Keiba responds to by doing the same, but Issei quickly gets between them and reminds them of their common goal. Zenobia then informs them that even for the church, what happened to Keiba was something they tried to forget, and the person behind it, Balba, is most likely involved with what the fallen angels are doing, and that Fried is his assistant. Hearing that information, Keiba declares that he'll go alone, and the church girls happily accept his decision and leave. Then Keiba asks Issei not to get involved, saying that it's his personal revenge, but he refuses to stand back, insisting that, as his friend and family, he wants to help him. Issei reminds him how Riez is also worried for him, and hearing that, Keiba recalls his past. He tells them how he and other specimens had to endure experiments every day, and whenever they failed, they were disposed of. Then, when all of them failed, the church tried to cover up the whole operation by eliminating all of the specimens, but during the attack, everyone told Keiba to survive, giving him a chance to escape. While they all died, Keiba ran to the cold woods, puking out blood and nearing his death, while promising to have his revenge. But it was then that Riez presented herself to Keiba and gave him a second life as a devil and gave him a chance to have his revenge. While Keiba feels grateful for the life Riez gave him, he still has debts to his fallen friends to avenge their debts. Hearing that, Saji cries, declaring that he will help, and Kaneko insists to Keiba, as his friend, that she will help him. Seeing that, Keiba has no choice but to accept their help. Meanwhile, Riez and Sona are having another private conversation, while looking like snacks. Riez vents to her about how she's slowly losing her trusted knight, Keiba, but Sona assures her that is part of the Gremory family. Keiba will return to her, which eases Riez's mind. Just then, they get a call from Akino and Shinra, who inform them of something urgent. Back at home, Issei is surprised by Asia, who presents herself to him as a gift to cheer him up after his loss, as Aika suggested to Asia that the best way to cheer up a dude is to squeeze him dry. Issei thanks her for the gesture and assures her that he's fine. Asia then asks Issei if Keiba will be okay, and he assures her that they should believe in him and that he will return. Later, Issei leaves Asia, saying that he has a contract to fulfill, but he secretly sneaks off to meet the others about their plan to find the Excaliburs. He then calls his one and only client to tell him that he's canceling their meeting, but the Chad simply brushes it off and assures Issei it's fine. But unbeknownst to Issei, someone else is with the Chad, a mysterious white-haired man. Back at the abandoned church, the group disguises itself as priests and decides to split up to find Fried and the Holy Sword more efficiently. But before leaving, as her thanks, Zenobia informs Issei that the white vanishing dragon is awake, which reminds Issei of Drake's warning. They then find themselves at the same place where they defeated a stray devil, and there Fried emerges with Excalibur, led by Keiba. The group wastes no time getting ready for a fight, but Keiba takes charge and matches up to Fried using his speed. Meanwhile, Issei is trying to give Keiba a power boost, but because of the speed of the fight, he struggles to do so. Hearing that, Saji has an idea and summons his own sacred gear, surprising Issei. He uses it to hold Fried still, and in that window, Kaneko lifts Issei and yeets him towards Keiba, which Issei uses to give Keiba a boost. With this, Keiba uses his sword birth and almost eliminates Fried. But from the darkness, a priest who gives off the same energy as Diddy pops up, expressing how impressed he is with Issei and the others. He then gives Fried pointers in using the holy sword, Excalibur, telling him to channel his energy towards it, and when he does so, it lights up in power. Fried thanks the old priest, calling him Balba, and upon hearing the name, Keiba lights up in anger, wanting to chop his head off. However, with his newfound power, Fried cuts off Saji's rope, freeing himself and goes for Keiba. But Sinovia pops up just in time to blockade the attack, saving Keiba, But before the whole group gets to retaliate, Fried throws down a flashbang, blinding everyone, while he and Balba run away. Kiba and the two church girls waste no time in pursuing after them. But before Issei and the others follow suit, behind them, Riez and Sona pop up. Then, they regroup at a safe place where Issei explains to Riez everything from Kiba's desire for revenge to the present. She asks Kaneko in disbelief why she's involved, and Koneko explains how she too doesn't want to lose a friend in Kiba. Riez understands their reasoning, but warns them that what they did affected the demon world. Because of that, Saji gets punished by her master, Sona, who spanks him hard just like how your hoe of an ex likes it. Issei watches in fear, realizing that he will face the same fate in Riez's hand. But to their surprise, Riez simply hugs Issei and Koneko, expressing how glad she is to see them safe. But then she orders Issei to bend over like a good boy, so he can receive his punishment of 1,000 spanks. Suddenly, Kaneko jumps in, declaring that since she was also involved, she has to receive the same punishment. Issei refuses to let that happen and begs Riez to only spank him as her target. But Riez agrees to what Kaneko said and orders her to bend over. But to Issei's relief, Riez merely spanks Kaneko lightly, making him feel grateful that his master is kind-hearted. But when it gets to Issei, she uses magic and starts smacking him relentlessly. Afterward, Issei and Riez go home, and to their surprise, Asia greets them in nothing but an apron, saying that Aika suggested she do this to get Issei's baby Grady. Issei quickly warns her that his mom might freak out seeing her, but the mom suddenly pops up, saying that she supports it, as she wants to be a grandmother early. Riez sees this as a great idea, and Issei's mom quickly invites her to do the same. Riez leaves to get herself an apron, praising Asia for making a daring move before her. Asia then asks Issei if she's troubling him, but Issei assures her she looks great, and even adds that she will always protect her against anything from the church or even Goku himself. Hearing that, Asia expresses how she didn't regret becoming a demon, as it gives her the chance to find and love everyone in Issei. She hugs him, giving Issei a chance to grab hold of the bakery. But before he does so, Riez pops up in her own apron, stopping Asia from gobbling Issei's glizzy. Elsewhere, Irina is battling Fried, but gets put on the defensive, causing her clothes to get torn apart just perfectly for some juicy fan service. But as Fried is about to finish her, a fallen angel pops up, stopping Fried and telling her that they can use her. The next day, Issei is worried about Kaiba and the others when the two goons suddenly ask him whether he prefers Riez's or Akino's melons. And Issei gives a convincing answer, saying that 2 pairs of melons will always be better than 1. Later, Issei and the others gather, still discussing Kiba's whereabouts, but one of Riez's familiars manages to find Irina, and they quickly tend to her. Sona and others show up, and Asia explains to them that her healing powers can't restore her energy, so Sona suggests that they bring Irina to her secret healing room. Suddenly, Fried shows up, pleased that they took the bait, and he quickly switches his attention to Asia, wanting to get freaky with her. Issei and the others quickly get on guard, but suddenly, the fallen angel behind everything, Kokabil, shows himself to them. He demands a chat with Riez as the daughter of the Gremory family, and Riez gladly obliges. Kokabil declares to Riez that he plans to attack his academy and everything around it to force her father, Serzex, to act and start another war. But because his fellow fallen angel, Azazel, refuses to do so, it forces him to move on his own and start a war between God, the devils, and the fallen angels. Fried laughs psychotically at his master's words and reveals the multiple Excaliburs he owns, including one he got after decimating Irina. Kokabil declares war, attacks them, and heads straight to the academy, where Balba is already there, and summons a monster right in the middle to kick off the war. Meanwhile, Sona informs the others that a fallen angel at Kokabil's level is able to nuke the whole city if he wants. So Riez orders her men to quickly move to the academy for battle. They quickly set up a barrier to prevent further damage to the outside world, even though Sona suspects that they will lose their school building in the process. She suggests that Riez call her powerful brother for help, but while Riez doesn't want to do that, Akino pops up, informs them that she has called Riez's brother, Serzex, for reinforcement. Riez asks why she did that, and Akino reasons that they have no choice, considering they're going against one of the leaders of the fallen angels, which leaves Riez no choice but to accept. Akino then tells them that the reinforcement will come in an hour, so Riez and her crew head inside to buy some time. She starts barking orders, telling Issei that he will support them with his boosted gear, while the others fight, and she warns them that, unlike the fight against Razor, their lives are on the line. Upon entering the battlefield, they are greeted by Kokobeel, who expected Surzex to come, and showcases his strength by blowing up the gym class building. Issei feels fear at the sight of his strength, and Drake warns him that if necessary, he will sacrifice Issei and turn his whole body into a dragon to defeat it. Bored out of his mind, Kokobeel summons his pets, 3-headed dogs, Cerberus, the guard dog of Hell's Gate. Riez, Aquino, and Kaneko get busy, fighting them off to buy time, while Issei and Asia are left behind, giving them their support. It frustrates Issei that he's not strong enough to boost their strength and fight at the same time. But his thoughts are interrupted when a Cerberus almost eats Asia, forcing him to save her. When it turns its attention to Issei, Kaneko jumps in, saying that she will buy Issei time to recover strength to boost them some more. But in the process, Kaneko gets ravaged and almost eaten alive if it wasn't for her insane strength. Asia quickly heals her, while Issei distracts the beast from her. But as the beast is about to munch on him, its head is cut off, and out comes Sinovia and her Excalibur, evening the odds. Riez and Aquino feel relieved to see her, knowing her Excalibur is perfect against the Cerberus. Just then, Issei's power is full, so he quickly transfers it to Riez and Aquino, giving them the maximum power boost to fight. With it, they decimate 2 of the Cerberus, but when the third one almost strikes Asia, Kiba shows up to save her, and Aquino blitzes the final Cerberus. Riez switches her attention to Kokobeel and launches a massive attack, but he deflects it back to the ground, creating a giant crater, and says he's impressed by how powerful a boost from Issei is. Then, Balba finishes his ritual, turning the 4 Excaliburs he stole into one powerful sword. Kokobeel suggests that they run away, or the whole city will be destroyed within a minute. But if they want to stop it, they have to defeat him, so they give it their best shot against Kokobeel. But Aquino gets blasted off the sky, forcing Issei to catch her from falling. When Issei gets furious at it, Aquino feels tingly inside at how manly he is. But then they see Kiba approaching Balba and the sword, declaring that he refuses to die before avenging his fallen comrades. Kokobeel sees this and blasts him, almost disintegrating him to nothing. Freed then shows up, and Kokobeel orders him to use the sword to finish off Riez and her crew. With the new Excalibur, he charges at Issei and Asia, but Sinovia jumps in to fight him, trading blows and getting the upper hand. But Freed starts using the 4 different abilities from the 4 Excaliburs from the Mimic to Kagebunshin, and even makes the sword disappear like he's Saber. It pushes Sinovia back, but Issei kicks him to help out, reminding him that the others are still there. Just then, Kiba gets back on his feet. And to his horror, Balba presents him with a crystal that's capable of giving people the ability to use an Excalibur. Zenobia recognizes it as the same crystal used on Arena to give her the ability to use Excalibur, and Balba laughs at it, pointing out their hypocrisy for still using his research even after calling him a heretic. Kiba feels furious inside, realizing that all of his and his dead comrades' sufferings and sacrifices were always useless, as they were nothing but test rabbits. Balba hands it to Kiba, saying that they can mass-produce it if they want, and Kiba prays while holding the crystal, still remembering the screams of agony from his friends. Just then, the souls of his friends appear beside him, and he prays, expressing his regret of being the only survivor, believing that the others deserve to live more than he did. When he notices the souls, one of them grabs him, and they tell Kiba that even if God didn't exist, their hearts will always be with him, giving him the closure he very much needed. The others watch in tears as Kiba absorbs the crystal, finally giving him the ability to wield an Excalibur. Drake tells Issei that Kiba has finally reached Balance Breaker, a point where a knight has reached his peak after achieving his hopes and dreams. Kiba then steps up against Balba, declaring once more that he will dispose of the evil in front of him. Freed jumps in with his Excalibur to face him, while Issei and the others encourage Kiba to end his revenge once and for all, saying that a knight of the Grimray family has to be capable of beating an Excalibur. Hearing that, Kiba uses Sword Birth, creating a new sword, combined with both demonic and holy powers, a sword that breaks the balance. Sinovia jumps beside him and offers him her help, which he accepts. She then summons her own sword, a different holy sword, one that sends fear into Balba's soul, the Durandal, capable of splitting anything that exists. It surprises Balba that someone is capable of wielding it, and Sinovia tells him that, unlike Irina or Kiba, she never needed the crystal and is considered the perfect specimen for wielding holy swords. The two attack Freed and his Excalibur, completely outclassing him, and Kiba destroys the Excalibur in half. Kiba declares that he has surpassed the power of Excalibur, but before he gets to slice Balba in half, Balba dies in the hands of Kokobile, who no longer sees a purpose in his existence. He feels tired of watching and orders Issei to use all of his dragon powers and transfer them to one fighter so he can face them. Riez grabs Issei's hand, quietly telling him to choose her, and they face Kokobile together. When his sacred gear is full of energy, Issei transfers it to Riez, and when she receives it, everyone there feels her enormous power, worthy to be called the successor of Satan. She launches the first attack, but while powerful, Kokobile throws it back straight at her. Suddenly, Akino joins in the fight, but Kokobile easily blocks her lightning attacks and mocks her for being the daughter of Barakil. It amuses Kokobile how Riez's team is filled with oddballs, but who amuses him most is Akino, whose father is a fallen angel himself, which surprises everyone. Kokobile challenges them all to defeat him, saying how none of them is worthy. But Issei gets offended and tells this clown to stop insulting Riez and her group. Issei challenges him head-on, and seeing this, Kiba and Sinovia rush Kokobile, giving Issei time to recharge his energy to defeat Kokobile. Kaneko joins in, but gets herself yeeted, alongside the others, but Kiba refuses to stop and launches another attack, which Kokobile easily deflects. Kiba keeps on persisting, and with a sword in his mouth, manages to slice Kokobile's face, wounding him. He strikes back, but Sinovia blocks him, and seeing her, Kokobile laughs, reminded of how her master is gone. Sinovia demands an explanation of what he just said, and while laughing, Kokobile reveals the truth that not only have the 4 great devils died, but so has God, shocking everyone. They refuse to believe his words, but he explains that in the Great War, God died, and the angels, devils, and fallen angels decided to end the war when that happened. It angers Kokobile that Azazel ordered the fallen angels to lower their fists, while Kokobile believed that they would have won the war against the angels and the Satans if they had continued. Asia asks who she has been praying to all this time, and Kokobile reveals that Archangel Michael has been playing God's role for some time, while hiding the truth that God died, just so humans can continue believing and survive as a species. Asia collapses after hearing that, while Zenobia is in disbelief, but Issei is furious, refusing to let any of that revelation stop him from achieving his dream of becoming the harem king. Kokobile laughs when he hears that the Red Dragon's goal is that degenerate, but he offers Issei to join him, promising all the cheeks he can clap if he were to join. Issei is swayed by his words for a second, but Riez wakes him up and offers him an offer he couldn't refuse, saying that if he wins against Kokobile, she will do anything he asks her to do. He asks if that means he can jiggle her jugs, and when Riez says that he can, Issei powers up in a way all of them have never seen before. He rushes Kokobile, deflects his attack, and manages to land a punch on his ugly head, surprising everyone. Issei then declares that, as a true degenerate who's packing heat and loves himself some gakegak, he will win. And while some are disgusted by what he just said, Akino is in awe, acknowledging that she has caught feelings for him. Suddenly, someone breaks through the barrier, blowing everyone away, and when he steps down, they are in shock to see the white vanishing dragon in the flesh. In a flash, he lands a critical hit on Kokobile, and when Kokobile tries to counter with a big attack, the white dragon uses his ability, Divine Dividing, to have the power of whoever he aims it at and gives it to him. Riez finally sees the legend come true, and that while Issei's Red Emperor Dragon gives powers to people, the White Dragon halves people's powers and takes them for himself. The White Dragon then attacks Kokobile, saying that Azazel wants to bring him back and decimates Kokobile completely and the magic circle in the middle of the field, giving Riez and her group the win. But then, the White Dragon shifts his focus to Issei, and suddenly, both of their dragons, the Red Emperor Dragon, Drake, and the White Vanishing Dragon, Albion, start talking to each other about how they can't wait to finally have their battle of destiny. Albion then is about to leave when Issei demands a fight after he defeated Kokobile by himself and took Issei's chance to go goo goo gaga on Riez melons, but Albion simply tells Issei to get stronger before leaving. Asia then wakes up, followed by Sona and the others arriving, who plan on fixing their beloved school. Keiba is still convinced that there are people who are still doing the same experiment he endured, but Issei pops up, praises him for the good work, and suggests that they all take a break. Asia asks him if he'll be coming back to the club, and Keiba assures her that he will. He then faces Riez, who is happy to see him come back to save them, and Keiba apologizes for turning his back on her and the others, and Riez forgives him, reminding him that he has family with him. Keiba then pledges his loyalty as her knight once more, and Riez hugs him on her melons, causing Issei to get jealous, but he does acknowledge that there's no one better as a knight than Keiba. Just then, Issei activates her magic and tells Keiba to bend over, reminding him of his punishments of 1,000 spanks. The next day, Xinovia pops up, presenting herself to them, and Riez explains that she has been reborn as a devil and is now her new knight alongside Keba, surprising everyone. Xinovia asked to be a devil after hearing about God's death, but still feels conflicted over her own decision. Issei asks her about Irina, and Xinovia tells him that Irina went back to the headquarters after receiving the 4 destroyed Excaliburs, which Xinovia believed could be restored. But Irina refused to accept that Xinovia chose to be a devil willingly before leaving, and Xinovia knows that the next time they'll meet, they will be enemies. She then tells the others that Irina doesn't know about God's death, and it's better this way, but because Xinovia knows, the church would eliminate her, so she chose to become a heretic and a devil. She then apologizes to Asia for everything she said to her, even offering to let her get a free slap. But Asia tells her that, despite being a devil, her life has been good with the friends who are in her life. Hearing that, Xinovia starts making friends, asking Asia to help her tour the school, and even asking Kiba for a spar later, which he gladly accepts. With that, Riez declares that they have a new member and will continue club activities as usual. Later, Riez and Aquino go swimsuit shopping together, picking the most outrageous pairs and sending a picture to Issei while he's in a karaoke with his friends. Issei then goes to get a drink, and there Kiba thanked him for what happened, and Issei assures him that he and the others have forgiven him. Later, Issei goes to fulfill another contract and hang out to chill with the Chad, playing Mia Khalifa video games while they goon together. But then, the Chad stands up, calls Issei out and his red dragon, and reveals himself as Azazel, the leader of the fallen Angels. Azazel explains that he's here to keep watch of Kokabil and Issei's sacred gear, and that it was he who ordered Albion to do his dirty work for him. But hearing that, Issei gets pissed, realizing Azazel's the reason he didn't get to taste what Riez's bakery created. Azazel apologizes for it, but tells Issei the truth that Issei is nowhere near Kokabil's level at this point. Then he informs Issei that the leaders of the Angels, devils and fallen Angels are having a meeting about this incident. The next day, Issei takes this information to Riez, and she can't believe that a fallen Angel has been in her territory this whole time. They talk about the meeting and realize that Kokabil's actions have caused a strain in the relationship between the 3 parties. But what angers her more is that Azazel almost took Issei from her, so she hugs him close to her melons, which Issei happily takes a sniff of. Later, they go to an apartment complex that belongs to the devils that Xinovia is currently living in. But inside, there's a dirty pool that hasn't been cleaned in years. Riez says that if they can clean it, they can take a dip, and Issei quickly sees the possibility of seeing the girls in swimsuits, so he gets excited about it. Then, while changing, Kiba suddenly approaches and tells Issei that as a knight, he will protect him, but Issei gets spooked by it, thinking that Kiba's giving off sus Major Glizzy loving energy, so he runs outside. Suddenly, he feels his dragon powers overwhelming, and Drake tells him that it's due to being with Azazel too much, as power attracts power. When the girls are done changing, they find Issei struggling with the powers in his hand, so Riez urges Aquino to suck out his powers like usual. While the others clean the pool and feel worried about him, Issei is enjoying getting his powers sucked dry by Aquino. Suddenly, Aquino gets daring, offering Issei to bump bellies with her behind Riez's back, saying that she wants to know what 10 inches feel like. But as she's about to kiss him, Riez pops up, demanding an explanation. Riez scolds Issei for wanting to enter someone else's creamy domain, and leaves in jealousy, amusing Aquino, who's happy to see Issei making progress with Riez. After the cleaning, Aquino puts water in the pool, and the girls start showing off their swimsuits to Issei, demanding him to pick which one he would most goon to. He asks Asia where Xinovia is, and she explains that she's having issues with her swimsuit. Just then, Riez asks him for a favor, and she wants him to teach Kaneko and Asia how to swim. While teaching Kaneko, he imagines what it would be like if it were Riez or Aquino, but suddenly they run into a wall, and she hugs him. Issei thinks she's gonna smack him, but Kaneko thanks him for teaching her, expressing how she can now see him as a good person. He assures her that he cares for her and pats her head, which makes her blush. Just then, they see Riez and Aquino race against each other, and Issei quickly uses his power to enhance his sight so he can see the jiggle physics at work while they swim. But Kaneko interrupts him, and reminds him to teach Asia as well, so he does. They continue enjoying their day, but in the middle of it, Riez asks Issei to put some sun cream on her, which he gladly does. Then she asks him to put some on her front, and Issei starts imagining that it was his cream instead and wonders why Riez is suddenly more aggressive with him, Suddenly, Aquino pops up to disturb them and asks Riez to let her borrow Issei for a night of pump fun. Both she and Riez start arguing over who Issei belongs to, but Aquino offers Issei something Riez never does, which is to let Issei have a taste of her pepperonis. That angers Riez, starting a magic fight between them, which destroys their surroundings. Issei quickly escapes to somewhere, and he meets Zenobia there, looking like the subject of every man's gunning imagination. She tells Issei she has been thinking, and she needs his help. When he asks what she needs help with, she takes him somewhere private and demands that he give her an offspring. She reasons that since he has dragon powers within himself, he makes a perfect, powerful genetic match with her, so she wastes no time, takes off her plot armor, and demands he expand her domain. But before they get to humping, Riez and the others pop up, demanding an explanation. When Zenobia simply says that she wants Issei's babies, they are all in shock. Afterward, while Issei is getting scolded, Serzex suddenly shows up with his maid, Grafia, surprising everyone. They all bow to him, and Serzex greets Asia first for joining Riez's family, then Zenobia, whom he holds in high regard for her ability to wield the Durandal. Riez asks him why he's here, and Serzex tells her that he's here to announce that he wants to have the conference between the Angels, the Satans, and the fallen Angels right here in the academy, surprising Riez. Later he joins Issei at his home, drinking tea with his folks, and Riez tells Issei it's awkward with him here, and Issei gets flustered seeing her like this. Then that night, Serzex decides to stay in Issei's room, wanting to speak with Issei privately, while Riez is struggling to sleep away from him, but Grafia drags her away to her room, and the same goes for Asia. Then, later in the night, Issei apologizes for making Serzex sleep on the floor like a worthless bum, but Serzex assures him that he feels comfortable, considering he was always pampered and not treated normally. He then thanks Issei for taking care of Riez, pointing out how Riez has never been this cheerful in the demon world, and Issei assures him that he will ensure that continues as her pawn. He then brings up Azazel, and while Issei is scared of him, Serzex assures him that he will be safe, and unlike Kokabeel, Azazel is not reckless, and even imprisoned Kokabeel for eternity for what he did. Suddenly, he talks about Riez's plots, which Issei admits to loving, and he suggests an idea for Issei to use his sacred gear to boost her melons, which is a crazy idea he had. Issei starts thinking about the possibilities, wondering what would happen, but to his degenerate mind's surprise, he can't imagine it. The next morning, Issei sees off Serzex as he, Grafia, and Riez talk a business and leave the house. Then, Asia leaves him to check in Zenobia, who woke up late, so Issei walks to school by himself. But then he feels a powerful presence, and in front of him, a gray-haired Chad approaches, introducing himself as Valley, the white vanishing dragon emperor. Issei feels his dragon hand burning, and Valley points at him, saying that he's defenseless. Suddenly, Keba and Zenobia pop up, telling him to stop, but Valley brushes them off, saying that they're leagues below him. The two regroup at Issei's side, and Valley tells Issei that, as a sacred gear user, he is way too weak and needs to get stronger faster. Riez shows up with the others to confront Valley, asking what he wants, and Valley simply warns Riez that throughout history, everyone who is close to the dragons will live a miserable life, and he tells Riez that she and the others might be heading the same way. He then leaves them, and Riez grabs Issei's hand, which he notices is shaking. Later, Issei finds himself bedridden after getting his powers sucked, and he recalls how his form against Razor was similar to what Valley was rocking, but Drake tells him that he's nowhere near in terms of power. Issei asks him about the history of the two dragons, and Drake tells him about the past. Back Cathan, during the Great War, the dragons chose not to get involved or care, but then there were two angry dragons who started a fight against each other, and they got carried away and started fighting on Earth. Because of that, the Angels, the Devils, and the fallen Angels decided to call a truce to get rid of the dragons, and when they did, they cut the dragons' souls into thousands of pieces, turning them into thousands of sacred gears spread throughout history. And because of that, in every era, the two dragons would always be destined to fight each other, with one of them ending up dying. Issei feels fear, knowing that he's way weaker than Valley, but he makes up his mind that despite the odds, he will achieve his dream to become a harem king. He heads to class and gets punched by the two stooges, who are annoyed to hear that the new, busty student, Zenobia, has chosen to join his occult club, adding another pair of cheeks to his roster. Just then, Zenobia pops up, and she gets to the point, asking Issei to use rubber and clap her, surprising the simps. Asia asks what it is, and Synovia gives one to her, suggesting she uses it. When Aiko sees what it is, she explains to Asia how it's used to contain baby batter to prevent an accident, and Asia gets flustered while looking at Issei. Seeing her reaction to Issei, the two simps attack Issei again, but Asia assures them that he's a good man. But then, Synovia asks once more for his precious golden pickle to tickle her from the inside. So Issei quickly takes the protections and runs off. Outside, he runs into Rias and the council members, who are worrying about the emergence of Valley and the upcoming Parents' Day, which Rias is really nervous about. Just then, Aquino grabs his arm and offers another finger sucking session to drain his power dry, but Rias quickly scolds them for talking dirty in front of her. Later, at home, Issei is about to take a bath when he finds Asia inside, and quickly closes the door, but then Rias pops up, and when she finds Asia inside, she suggests that the three of them bathe together. While the two girls are scrubbing each other, Issei is struggling to hold back his Slim Jim from turning into Fat Jim. Suddenly, Rias joins him in the bathtub, and while Asia is not looking, she tempts him to show him how manly he is and give her the ride of a lifetime. But Asia jumps in, refusing to let that happen, and it starts another battle between massive against medium. But when they ask Issei to choose, he has a nose period due to too much sauce. The next day, while the parents are watching for Parents' Day, Issei and the other students are creating art from clay, making the things they love. When Issei starts imagining what he loves, he imagines Rias in her glorious form and accidentally creates her perfectly with the clay, starting a commotion among the whole class with the masterpiece he just crafted. Later, he shows it off to Rias, and Aquino compliments him for his work in Rias's curves, but asks Issei to make one of her, even promising to let him touch her for research. But the others reject. Just then, a group of dudes run and gather at the gym building, and when they look, they find an idle magical girl named Milky, charming all of the simps there. Saji pops in to scold her for wearing indecent clothing and sends off all the simps. Just then, Sona pops up, and when Milky spots her, she quickly ogles her and begs her to have some lovey-dovey night with her sister. Issei is confused by what he's seeing, and Saji explains that Milky's real name is Serafal, who is Sona's older sister, and one of the 4 High Satans who rules the Devil World. Rias goes to greet her, and when Serafal looks behind her, she notices Issei. Rias orders Issei to introduce himself, and when he does, Serafal acts like an idol to him, which annoys Sona. She scolds Serafal for not acting accordingly, reminding her that one of her sparkles can flatten an entire town. But Serafal argues that she can't stop her love and passion for magical girls like Sailor Moon. Seeing their interaction, Issei asks the others why they didn't call Serafal for help against Kokobile, and Aquino chimes in, saying that Serafal loves Sona so much that she would have grind Kokobile to pieces and blow the whole planet if they had called her. Tired, Sona runs away while Serafal chases after her, and Rias points out how all 4 High Satans are like this, absolute oddballs with a few loose screws. Later, they run into Issei's parents talking with Rias's absolute Chad of father, Zioticus, and Issei's father invites Zioticus and his whole family to have dinner at his place, so Rias, her father, and her brother all hang out at Issei's place, eating dinner, watching videos they took off their precious children back in the classroom proudly. While Rias is embarrassed by it, Rias runs away to her room, and Issei chases after her. He then invites her back to his room, which she accepts. He then tries to cheer her up, but suddenly, Rias asks him if he was glad to meet her. He expresses how he is, and even feels conflicted at the idea of Rias getting a boyfriend. Suddenly, she kisses him and tastes his tongue while twisting it. Asia jumps in to stop them, and Rias tells her that Aquino taught her that. Just then, Serzex pops up, and he suggests to Rias that it's time for him to release her other bishop, confusing Issei and Asia. Rias explains that this bishop has an ability that's too dangerous, so she sealed him away, but after the incident with Kokobile, Serzex believes it's time to release him, which Rias agrees to. They go to the locked room at the club and open the seal to meet the bishop. Inside, they find a casket, and when Rias opens it, they discover another cute girl Issei is about to add her to the list of baddies he will clap. But to his surprise, they explain that it's a dude who likes to cross-dress, a half-vampire named Gasper. Issei expresses his disappointment, not wanting to believe that this jailbait is actually a dude. When Rias invites Gasper to go outside, he refuses to go, not wanting to leave his room, claiming that he's shut in. When Issei forces him to go, he suddenly transports. And Riez explains that Gasper has the forbidden Baylor view, which he can use to stop time whenever he's distressed. An ability so dangerous that Surzex himself decided to seal him off in the room. Riez adds that his ability has the potential to be a balance breaker, surprising everyone, but Gasper refuses to listen and hides inside a box, opting to live there from now on. Just then, Akino reminds Riez of the time, and she tells Keiba that he has to come with them to meet Surzex, who wants to have a conference and also examine his sword balance breaker. Meanwhile, she tasks the others to train Gasper for the time being. Zenovia starts by chasing him around to train his cardio, causing him to cry. Kaneko takes a different approach by using garlic to scare him and chase him around as well. Just then, Saji pops up to check on them, and when he sees Gasper, he feels his willy tingling till he realizes Gasper's a dude. Suddenly, Azazel pops up, surprising them. They all get into their battle stance, but Azazel assures them that they can't even scratch them. He asks them about Kiba's whereabouts, expressing his curiosity with his holy demonic sword, and when he finds out he's not there, he feels disappointed. He then points out Gasper's ability, calling him dangerous for not being able to master it, and even suggests that he suck Issei's blood to gain the dragon's power to add strength. Then he shifts his focus to Saji, who he says holds an amazing power in his sacred gear, which he doesn't recognize yet. Before he leaves, Issei asks him why he took an interest in him, and Azazel says that it's merely a hobby. Later, they continue training Gasper by playing volleyball, but every time he's about to receive the ball, he runs away, and forcing Kaneko to drag him back in. After what Azazel said, Issei suggests to Gasper to suck his blood with his vampire teeth, but Gasper strongly refuses to do it, saying he hates blood and that it tastes disgusting. Then Gasper locks himself in again, forcing Issei to call Riez for her help getting Gasper out. Riez explains that there's a reason why Gasper is like this, and it's in his past. She retells how Gasper is a child to a vampire father and a human mother, but because of it, he was shunned by the vampires for being half-blood and bullied by the humans, as they refuse to be around a monster that's capable of stopping time whenever he pleases, not knowing he doesn't even know how to control it. They hear Gasper cry that he doesn't want to see his friends' frozen faces anymore, and that he doesn't want to scare people anymore. Hearing his pain, Issei declares to Riez that he will get Gasper out of there, promising his life on it, and Riez tells Issei he's counting on him. Meanwhile, Asia, Kaneko, and Zenovia are heading home, and they bathe together to bond while talking about Issei and his massive heart, capable of being kind to anyone, even to the shut-in vampire in Gasper or the vengeful knight in Kaiba. Asia wonders how Gasper can be okay in the sunlight, and Kaneko informs her that Gasper possesses the blood of a daywalker vampire, giving him the ability to live under the sun. They discuss what they can do for him and how to handle his extreme anxiety. But that reminds Asia of herself and how she used to be before meeting them. Back with Issei, to bond with Gasper, he expresses how, just like him and his powerful ability, he was given the power of the Red Dragon Emperor, and it scares him every time he has to use it. Gasper asks him why he kept using it even after knowing its danger, and Issei simply says that it's because he's an idiot who doesn't want to see his friends and precious Riez cry again. Just like in the battle against Razor, Gasper tells Issei that he followed that battle, and Issei reminds him that from now on, he will be involved in them. Gasper is scared that he will hold them back, but Issei assures him, as a friend, that he won't, and that if there's anything that will scare him, Issei will beat them up. He encourages Gasper to join him to help Riez and even says that he's jealous of his ability. When asked why, like a true degenerate, Issei says how he would use it to stop time and get himself some gunning material straight from the source. Gasper feels flattered to hear someone envy his power, thinking that everyone hated it, but Issei tells him that the sacred gear they hold is their destiny, and they shouldn't waste it. He then adds that he will even use his sacred gear to boost Riez's melons one day, and Gasper gets inspired by his motivation. They continue their talk inside, spouting ideas about how they could combine both of their powers. Just then Kiba comes in. Impressed by Issei's progress, and Issei tells Kiba how the man and Riez's team should do something together. Kiba asks what he has in mind, and Issei tells him that they should use his power to boost Gasper, then use Gasper's power to stop time so Issei can get himself some creamy action, while Kiba stands watch and protects them from enemies. Then, the three girls show up, expressing how they want to help Gasper and his issues. Suddenly, Kaneko throws garlic at him, scaring him, and Zenovia puts a paper bag on his head like a mask, and to their surprise, Gasper feels safe and comfortable. They reveal that it was Asia's idea, and she says it's inspired by her fear of talking to people, so she believes that the paper bag will help him. The next day, Issei and Asia Ri about to head to class when they run into Riez and Aquino, who inform Issei that they will need him after school. Then, Issei heads to a shrine where Aquino is waiting for him in a nun's outfit, and she tells him that they are here to greet and meet someone. Suddenly, someone with golden wings appears in the sky, and he introduces himself as the leader of the Angels, Archangel Michael. They sit down inside, facing Michael, and Issei feels nervous facing God's literal champion, the man who defeated Hell. Suddenly, Michael summons a sword in front of him, and he introduces it as Ascalon, the Dragon Slayer. Michael explains that a dragon slayer is meant to slay dragons, and Ascalon was used during the time they had to fight against both the red and white dragons, but now in peacetime, they have no use for it. However, with recent events involving Cocobelan, the fallen Angels, they want Issei, who they consider the weakest sacred gear user, to have this sword and combine it with his boosted gear. Issei doesn't feel sure that he can take it, but Drake assures him that a boosted gear follows its master's will, so if Issei wills it, then it's possible. Issei then grabs the sword, focusing on synchronizing its energy with his boosted gear, and to his surprise, he successfully synchronizes and merges the Dragon Slayer with his dragon boosted gear, giving him a weapon and power boost. With that, Michael's purpose here is finished, and he leaves them. Then Issei sits down with Aquino to talk, and he asks her about what Kokobeel said about her being the daughter of Barakil. Aquino then reveals that she is the daughter of a human mother and a fallen Angel father after her mother saved the wounded Barakil in battle, and clapped him afterward. Issei apologizes for asking, but Aquino stands up and shows him her wings, which are half fallen angel and half devil. She believed that by becoming a devil, she could have gotten rid of it, but now it resulted in this. She asks what Issei thinks of seeing this monstrosity, considering that fallen Angels have been the reason for his pain from the start, as they abused him both physically and mentally. Issei tells Aquino that while he hates fallen Angels, he likes her, which surprises her. Aquino tries to remind him of her fallen angel background, but Issei doesn't care and says that in his eyes, Aquino is nothing more than his beloved senior that he cherishes. Issei tries to backpedal on what he just said, but Aquino tells him it's too late, as he has already stolen her heart. She tears up, says that she loves him, and aggressively hugs him on the floor. She then tells him that she doesn't mind being his third wife behind Riez and Asia, as it makes their relationship feel more naughty, having to bump bellies behind the others. She then hugs her melons into him even tighter and even lets him lay his head on her lap, causing Issei to almost bust. Issei says that Riez would cut his willy if she sees this, but to his shock, Riez pops up, demanding an explanation. She pinches Issei and says that since he has no reason for being here, he has to leave, but before leaving, Aquino points out how nice it is for Riez to be his number one, but Riez leaves feeling annoyed. On their way down, Riez asks Issei what she is to him compared to Aquino. Issei says that while Aquino is Aquino, Riez will always be his president and master, but that makes Riez feel sad, realizing that they're not that close. She coldly walks away, saying that she has to prepare for the conference, leaving Issei by himself. Later, Issei continues training Gasper to control his power alongside Asia. And when Gasper is struggling, Issei motivates him by reminding him of their goal to stop time and mingle some melons, which manages to inspire Gasper. But then, instead of the ball, Gasper stops his arm and apologizes for it. But Issei assures him that he's okay and that he should give it his all. He tells them that he has people who like him, and Asia joins in, telling Gasper that she likes him, which fires him up. He quickly puts on his paper bag, and they continue their training, while the others watch from a distance. Zenobia doesn't understand why Gasper always cries when he's with her, compared to when he's with Issei, and Kaneko suspects that he and Issei have a secret degenerate plan that they keep secret. Just then, Asia asks Issei about his plan, and when Gasper is about to spill it, Issei quickly shuts his mouth, realizing that his plan is bogus and that he needs an actual good plan from an actual teacher who knows about sacred gears. Elsewhere, Azazel and Veli are discussing the upcoming conference, and while Valley doesn't want to come, Azazel orders him to be there. Valley talks about how there are no more wars in God, as he wants to defeat him, but instead he feels Sakedo be born in this era, with everything around him boring him. Back home, Issei is about to go to sleep when Riez pops up with Aquino, saying that since they got home late from the conference, Aquino will be staying the night with them. She then tells Issei that Aquino told her what happened, and Issei quickly apologizes for sniffing on someone else's lap. But Riez assures him it's not what she's talking about, and tells him she feels proud that Issei told Aquino that he likes her no matter what. Suddenly, Aquino gets aggressive, claiming she wants Issei's pickle for the night, but Riez pulls him back into her, saying that his pickle is only hers to gobble. It starts another tug of war between them, while Issei enjoys the whole thing. But Asia pops up, joining the party, which ends with Issei waking up the next morning with all three baddies sleeping on him. The next morning, the conference starts, and while Valley is scouting the place, he meets an anomaly by the name of Office, quietly watching everything. Meanwhile, Rias and the others prepare for the conference, leaving Gasper in Kaneko's watch, asking him not to activate his ability during the conference. Then they go inside where the leaders of the three parties are present, and Issei notices Valley being there, which he sees as a threat. While Zenobia notices Irina there, taking Archangel Michael's side, they first discuss Kokabil's action and motives, questioning whether Azazel is involved in any way, but Azazel assures them that he's not involved and Kokabil has been imprisoned forever. Azazel then brings up what's important, the peace treaty, and demands that they start signing and finish the conference. However, back in the club room, Kaneko can feel people approaching with evil intentions. Suddenly, they get attacked by humans who claim that they are witches, and they demand that Kaneko hand them Gasper. Kaneko carries Gasper and escapes them, avoiding their attacks and hides in the sealed room, believing that they are safe. But then, Kaneko gets attacked, and Gasper gets himself captured. The witches then put them in magic circles, and they torture Gasper, forcing him to release his destructive ability. Back in the conference room, Azazel says that since there are two destructive dragons in the room, they should escape for their input to decide whether they should continue their peace or go to war. Valley says that he only wants to face strong opponents, but Azazel tells him that war is not necessary for him to get strong opponents. Then, he asks Issei the same question, but to convince him to choose peace, Azazel tells Issei that if he chooses peace, he could spend his peaceful days bumping bellies and treating Riez like a cream donut, while living his life as a harem king. Hearing that, Issei strongly supports the idea of peace just so he can expand Riez's domain every day, not realizing her brother, Surzex, is right there, listening while flustered. Riez scolds him for being freaky, and he quickly changes his answer, saying that he will use his power for his friends. But then Issei asks Archangel Michael directly why Asia was exiled, demanding an explanation. Even though Asia has never been short of faithful and loyal, Michael explains that after God died, the only thing that remains is his system of faith. So the Angels had to make a heartbreaking decision of letting go of everything that puts a risque for them, including Asia and her ability to heal both Angels and devils. Zenobia asks if that includes her, who found out about God's death, and Michael tells her that it is, as that disturbs her faith, and in that moment, Irina finds out that Zenobia never betrayed them. Michael apologizes for what happened, but Zenobia assures him that even as a devil, she has lived life happily, and Asia joins in to say the same. So they forgive him, which Michael appreciates. But then, Azazel brings up the fallen Angel who murdered Asia, and Gering Issei, and he continues rage-baiting him until suddenly, time stops and everyone stops except for Issei and a few people. It surprises them, and Valley tells them that they didn't get affected because of their immense powers, and the fact that some of them have powerful gears like holy swords and dragons. When they look outside, they see the witches, realizing they're here to ambush them, and that they are forcing Gasper to use his ability by torturing him. But they realize that it means they have a traitor here. Surzex expresses his worry that if Gasper's ability is released in its full potential, everyone will freeze, including the strongest ones. Issei is surprised to hear that Gasper is that strong, and Riez explains that Gasper is chosen as a bishop because he's someone who can create anomalies, which is considered a mutation piece. Riez says that she has a Ruke inside the castle, and she plans to send herself and someone there to save Gasper, trading places with the Rook. Issei volunteers to go, promising to protect her, and Surzex gives Issei his blessing. Just then, Valley suggests that he should simply murder Gasper with ease and Gering the others, but Azazel calms him down and orders him to play around with their enemies outside. So he flies outside and turns into his balance breaker form before cleaning down the house from the witches. Meanwhile, Riez and Issei summon a portal and trade places with the Ruke piece like in a chess. Then they reach the inside of the castle, and Issei pulls out the bracelets Azazel gave him, which can be used as a sacrifice just in case he needs to go balance breaker in battle. But he also told Issei to put the other bracelet on Gasper to tone down his power just in case. Back in the conference room, another devil shows up, Kateria, and she quickly blows up the room. But the others manage to blockade her, and Surzex demands an explanation. Kateria says that after the death of God and Satan, The world needs a restart, and just like the old regime, she wants another war to end everything and take the title of Satan from Surzex. Azazel laughs at her words and steps forward, challenging her to a big fight between the leader of the fallen Angels and the forgotten leader of the devil's old regime. Back in the battlefield, the witches are slowly destroying their defense barrier, so the three swordsmen step forward, saying that they will buy them more time so Issei can save Gasper. In the middle of the battle, Irina asks Sinovia why she didn't tell her the truth, and Sinovia expresses how she refuses to tell Irina that God died, not wanting to see her heartbroken face. With the secret out, they declare that they are Bakke's friends and fight together like before. Bakke with Azazel. He notices that Kateria's magic is different and stronger, so he asks her who is helping her behind the scenes, but she refuses to answer. While watching the battle, Riez explains that Kateria and her family wanted to continue the war in the past, but because of it, they were exiled to the deepest part of the underworld, so she's now here for revenge and her title back. Riez and Issei then find Gasper in her custody, and Gasper begs them to end him, not wanting his ability to trouble them. But Riez refuses to do it, reminding Gasper of the day she recruited him into her family and her promise to never leave him. Riez assures Gasper that he can trouble her all he wants, and she will always console him afterward as he is her family. Hearing that, Issei adds and tells Gasper not to give in, reminding him of all the people around him. Then he summons the sword, cuts himself, and throws his own dragon blood onto Gasper's face. He tells him to drink it, and when Gasper does, it unlocks his powers and attacks the witches. One of them tries to attack Issei, but Gasper stops her attack, giving Issei an opening to use his ultimate move, the dress break, revealing the witches and their melons. But when Issei wants to enjoy his new toys, Riez smacks him and orders her crew to continue. They jump in to help the others and lead Gasper close to Surzex to ensure his safety. But seeing how everyone is fighting because of his powers, Gasper makes a big decision. He tells Issei that he wants to be a man like him and to be someone who will make Riez proud. He destroys his bracelet, scaring them, and uses his power, but to their surprise, it sets everyone free from being frozen and closes all the witches' portals, and they realize that in that brief moment, Gasper manages to control his power. The others then join the battle against the witches, slowly taking them all down, and Azazel has had enough of games and uses his own artificial sacred gear, activating Balance Breaker, and gives himself his own dragon armor. He quickly blitzes Kateria, and when she tries to hold on and blow herself up, Azazel cuts his own arm and finishes Kateria for good, ending her ideology. Suddenly, Azazel gets attacked by above, and when they look up, they see Valley in his dragon armor, revealing himself as the traitor this whole time. Azazel says that he has suspected him the whole time and even knows the group of rebels he has joined, Chaos Brigade, led by none other than the Ouroboros dragon, Office. Issei asks who that is, and Riez explains that Office is the infinite dragon god, a dragon so powerful that God himself feels threatened by her existence. But then, Azazel reveals the bigger truth of who Valley really is, and he says that his full name is Valley Lucifer, a descendant of Satan himself, and a son to a human, which is why he can wield the sacred gear. Being a half-devil, everyone is in disbelief when they hear that, and Veli presents himself as the epitome of miracle, the man who has the potential to be the strongest, having both a dragon emperor in his hands and Satan's blood in his veins. He mocks Issei, his counterpart, as a weakling who only knows how to goon to Mia Khalifa all day and only got lucky to hold the sacred gear. Suddenly, Valley gets an idea to motivate him and tells Issei that to get him stronger, he's gonna make Issei hate him by eliminating both of his beloved parents. Issei shakes at that idea. Anger flows through him, wanting nothing more than to take Valley's life. He activates his Balance Breaker, surpassing his bracelet, and attacks Valley with his Dragon Slayer, Escalon. Valley avoids his attacks and uses his ability to halve and take Issei's power, causing him to drop weak. When Issei looks back at him, Drake tells him that Valley's wings are releasing energy, meaning that he has a maximum capacity of energy he can keep. Suddenly, Valley pushes Issei even further, switching his focus to his friends, forcing Issei to take the hits, begging him to hate him more. Out of anger, Issei transfers all his energy into his Escalon, then stabs Valley in his energy core to transfer all his energy into Valley and overcharges his wings, causing his Balance Breaker to break. Valley expresses that he's impressed by his move, but then transforms back into his dragon armor with full energy with ease, while Issei's energy supply is at its lowest. But then, Issei sees Valley's energy core on the floor and does the unthinkable. He grabs it and declares that just like Kiba combined both Holy and the Devil, he will combine Valley's power with his and take his energy. Valley and his dragon laugh at his stupidity, but Drake warns them that with Issei as his master, nothing is impossible. Suddenly, while in pain, Issei manages to absorb the energy, surprising them, and has Valley's dragon hand as his right hand. Valley is fully impressed by his supposed rival and decides to show him his true ability to have. He starts warping reality itself, turning buildings smaller, confusing everyone. To put it simply, Azazel jumps in and explains that Valley's ability is capable of having Riez's melon size. Hearing that, Issei goes full Super Saiyan, releasing an insane amount of energy, and he starts attacking Valley, giving him the 2-piece fried chicken combo, all to protect the melons of his precious baby mamas from Riez to Akeno to Asia to Zenobia and even to Kaneko's non-existent melons. His barrage of hits pushes Valley back, and he tells Albion he wants to activate his Juggernaut drive, even though Albion suggests he not use it. But before he gets to activate it, someone drops in from the sky, telling Valley that they need to go and fight the Nordic gods later. Azazel is surprised to see him, Son Goku, joining Valley and the Chaos Brigade, while the only Goku Issei knows is the one with blonde hair. They quickly escape there, and when Issei charges, he loses his powers, and Azazel tells him that he's all out of juice after the battle. Riez quickly hugs him, and Issei proudly declares that he has saved her melons. With the battle finished and a new enemy in sight, Surzex declares this as the start of peace between the Angels, Devils, and fallen Angels. Issei then asks Michael for a favor to let Asia and Zenobia pray to them, even though they're devils. Irinia chimes in to apologize for believing Zenobia to be a traitor, and Zenobia accepts her apology. Michael accepts Issei's request and tells them that he will make an exception for 2 devils to be able to pray to them. Later, Riez approaches Gasper and Kaneko, and she hugs them, thanking them for their hard work, even though they got captured. Gasper tears up in the hug and hugs even tighter. Michael then returns to heaven with the other angels, getting ready to plan the next Atakai against the Chaos Brigade. When they leave, Asia jumps on Issei, kisses him, and tells him she loves him. Issei tells Zenobia that she can now pray again to her faith, and she gets flustered, seeing what he did for her. The next day, to everyone's shock, Azazel presents himself as their club's newest advisor after Serafal forced Sona to put him there, and Riez realizes that Sona sold him out to avoid Serafal's anger. Azazel then informs them that Surzex gave him a mission to help train their underdeveloped sacred gears, from Issei's dragon gear to Kiba's sword, so they will be more ready the next time they face the Chaos Brigade. But then he has another message from Surzex that, because it's important for Riez, their king, to be close with her team, all of the girls in the club are ordered to start living with Issei, making his household stickier and hotter than ever. If you watch this anime recap until the end and want a part 3, comment down below Jiggle the Jugs. And if you love anime recaps like this, watch this video.